In this sharing, we're going to review a debate that took place on the show that goes by Solar Mind. Now, the main point of this is, of course, to clarify all the more when it comes to some questions that may still be lingering around in the world when it comes to the truth of what is biblical history. Also, when it comes to the debate itself, there were ultimately some technical difficulties which took place, as the premise that I provided for this debate was not actually seen, as you'll see here.
Official to do it, pre-recorded anyway. So
Yeah.
there's no advantages to that, based off of what the judges seen, and then like too. Remember, because I believe that portion of it wasn't even being shown. I had to look on my phone. When I looked on my phone, it looked like it was like a black screen. But that's the risk that you get when you're relying on somebody else to do something for you. And I didn't do that intentionally, but it was just
I assume that somebody must have texted you from the chat or something, because I don't pick up my phone at all during the debate until the shucklebuck round. Until I submit the score, my phone is off. I'm not looking at it or doing anything. So I assume that somebody else had to bring it to your attention.
No. I actually just went to my phone.
Okay.
I went to my phone to look at it because I know that the streams sometimes does that, and I was using the
So, of course, being as that this is ultimately to edify all the more, I will make sure that it is actually seen here within this review. So if anyone, of course, out there wishes to challenge any of this, you are able to see all the more clearly what exactly it was that I was stating. And though these atheists will lie until they go to hell itself ultimately, if you fools want to step up to see if you are not made to look like exactly what you are ultimately, whatever degrees you may have for me to wipe myself or not, of course, come forward with what it is you think you can do.
The debate is in the building. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring the brothers on. We got the one and only Landy Christ in the building. What's going on, Landy?
K.O.T, thank you for joining us.
All right. So Landy Christ is in the building. He is making his debut debate here on the Solar Vision Debate League. And we got the one, the only K.O.T in the building. What's going on, K.O.T?
Shalom, fam. Peace and blessings. Let me give all praises to the Heavenly Father. Kahalab nama yo. By the power of His word, I rock. Hallelujah. Peace and blessings, brother. Soul of mine. And peace and blessings, brother Lindy.
All right. So, this debate will be structured as follows. We will be doing a 5-minute opening, a 13-minute premise, a 10-minute rebuttal, 10 minutes apiece for the rapid fire round, and a 5-minute closing.
It's a 13-minute.
What's
It's a
that?
13-minute premise we agreed on.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said 13-minute premise, right?
Oh, okay, my bad.
It's fine.
All right. So, 5 minutes for the closing. So, who is the affirmative for tonight's debate?
My brother Lindy is.
So, Landy is first up to bat. We will be setting the timer for 5 minutes. Landy, it is on you, brother.
Thank you very much. You ready for me now?
Yes, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Landy, and I go by Landy Christ. Christ is translated from Mashiach, which means Messiah, in ancient Hebrew, which is the original language and script of the human being. The word Adam means humankind, for long used in acronym form as a calendar or a clock, standing for since Adam to David to Mashiach. And in this sharing, I will further be proving that is true. Is Adam the first man? Being able to demonstrate that there was a first man literally is to reveal that you are royalty of God itself, proving the legitimacy of actual biblical records that God created the universe in a purposeful, ordered, orchestrated symphony of 7 phases, well known as the 7 days of creation, and that we are indeed the crown jewel of that image, that creation. By the grace of God, we will be seeing how the ancient Hebrews kept track of time in a manner passed down, beginning with Adam. To many that are agnostic, this information will be like finding out that you have a parent that you did not know that you had, as by the grace of God, the time has come for this Eden to Eden, this full circle since Adam to David to this moment, in which our true origins, our true genesis is revealed. It is held by many people, including scientifically, that the very origin of the human race began in populations. Though this, of course, brings on the question, how did these populations begin? And how? As we here all know, naturally every birth comes from two, a mother and a father. I am looking to all the more prove any necessary clarification that though of course in time the human race reached a point which we today consider populations that still had a beginning. Every baby born that were a part of getting to and made up those populations was born of a mother and father, including the necessity of there being a first baby born to the first mother and father. That reality causes one to confront creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and signatures reflective of that statement and its 7 phases, those 7 days, are embedded within the human race. This is displayed through scientific modern-day revelations, such as an example which shows that like any great parent does, what is commanded of us is for our very own good. As the 4th commandment, to remember the Sabbath, to rest on the 7th day, has been confirmed to literally be represented within our very own bodies, as science confirms that there is a literal 7-day rhythm of vital functions within our bodies going on, called a circa septum rhythm, a literal 7-day rhythm, which is an inner micro reflection of the macro of creation, orchestrated in a symphony, a series of 7. And you are about to see that in all the more detail now.
All right, all right, all right. Shout out to brother Landy Christ. You can see the rest of your time.
Oh, I'm perfectly fine with that. Thank you very much.
All right, all right. So we're gonna now pass the rock over to K.O.T. K.O.T. It is on you, brother. Whenever you're ready, you got
Okay.
5
I will be
minutes.
sharing my screen. I need to share my screen for my opening solo.
All right, I got you. All right, screen is sharing. Whenever you're ready, brother.
Is Adam the literal first man, family? No, he is not. And I will be going through this in my premise tonight. What is our argument, family? My opponent had every opportunity to add or alter the debate title, but he did not. He could have said according to the Bible, which would have limited his information and mine from using other sources and sciences, but he did not. I told my opponent I would attack this argument from every side. I will be using science and most definitely be reading scripture to substantiate my claim, showing how Adam is not the literal first man. My sources will be the Bible, Human Origins Project, humanorigins.si.edu, creation.com, which holds an article from the Gazette, answersearchjournal.org, which has the scholars inside of the article. Understanding my premise, we understand that Adam is a historical figure based around 6,000 years old, 6,000 years ago. I will be showing a brief overview in my premise using science on how ancestry of modern man predates Adam as being the first man. Scriptures from a Hebrew thought. This is what we clearly need to understand. I will be also correlating a scientific historical narrative to the so-called creation story in Genesis. I will be showing how it is a restoration story, family, after the younger dryas period, and not a literal creation story. This is a quote from Ecclesiastes 1:1. You can go read the whole chapter if you want to, family. Wherefore, let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us, wherein we may seem to come short of some words, which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew, so the same things spoken in Hebrew and translated into another language have not the same understanding in them. So, reading these things at face value, they do not mean what you want them to mean. Am I making this up? No, the book clearly tells you this itself. When they translated these things, the Hebrews, into other languages, it doesn't have the same understanding. So you see, God created, doesn't mean he literally created. You see, like the virgin birth, it doesn't mean in our culture what it means in English. And the book is telling you that. It's not what I'm making up. It says, for the same things uttered in Hebrew, so spoken in Hebrew and translated into another language have not the same understanding in them. So you can't take what you're reading in English as face value. You must go to our culture. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. So he's going to give you a narrative according to English interpretation of Christianity. But I'm going to give you from my culture, my people, the Bantu, Hebrews, the Igbos. I will be showing survivors of the cataclysm seen upon the fifth day, family. I'm going to read Isaiah 28:9. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So it teaches us, this book is a parabolic. We have to use precepts from other prophets and scribes that's showing us the narration of the true story. And that's how you read it in English, because it's not the same understanding spoken in another language. I will be going into the book of Second Esdras. We need to understand that the so-called creation story is found throughout the Bible, not only in Genesis. I will be showing two types of people that are spoken of on the fifth day, which clearly shows Adam is not the literal first man. Adam and Eve created. If Adam and Eve was a literal creation, created in God's image, my opponent is going to have to show us what God is. I'll be showing how the scriptures are alluding to an allegorical creation story, meaning spiritual, not physical, as in literal. He's not literally creating Adam. I will be showing how he is placing wisdom into Adam, bringing him to life, having understanding. But my opponents, they truly believe Adam was the first man of humankind. And when I get into my premise, family, I will be showing you clearly how these things uttered in Hebrew, spoken in Hebrew, as you're reading them in English, they have not the same understanding. I'll be using precept upon precept, also using scripture, showing you how the other prophets are speaking of the creation story, showing you that it is a restoration story, showing you that they do not understand what the Heavenly Father truly speaks into them. And we will truly see that Adam, he's not the literal first man of humankind. He's the first atom. What does that mean? The first people called Adam. Just like Jacob is the first Israelite. First people named to be Israel. He is a tribal name. Adam and Eve, both their name is Adam because that's the name of their tribe. I will be showing you how he's taken from the people of Enoch, which is documented in the second Esdras. And I will end my time there. Peace and blessings, family. Hallelujah.
All right. Shout out to both debaters. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this debate, the premise round, right after this brief intermission. Back. And this is your boy Solar Mind, and this is the premise round. We're going to get this thing started, starting out with the one, the only Landy, Christ. All right. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this round. All right. So
This premise round was set to be 13 minutes long, so of course the information presented here is condensed to align with being within that time frame. Was Adam the first man? By now, most of you may know that every single person is able to be traced back to a single male ancestor and a single female ancestor via Y chromosomal and mitochondrial DNA research. While skeptics try to cling to it not necessarily meaning that they were the first male and female, and also project time frames of their living way beyond what is given biblically. Yet there are studies which indeed show a time frame which points us to Adam and Eve. So in this sharing, you will see all the more evidence that Adam was indeed the first man, such as this study which has shown that all humankind is 99.9% genetically the same. And in light of that, still mainstream evolutionary theory proposes that humans did not originate from a single pair, but rather from populations of hominins. And this being the current standing of mainstream science, it is all the more important to be aware that there is not a single fossil, not even a fossil, let alone a skeleton, of a most recent common ancestor which some scientists postulate humans evolved from. Now, being a quote most recent common ancestor, you might think that especially in the light of the law of superposition as it applies to archaeology, which is in essence an undisturbed earth, the deeper something is, the older, the younger something is, the more recent something is, the closer to the surface, and thus easier to find. However, though we have fossils of things more ancient than our supposed most recent common ancestor, once more there has not been a single fossil of a most recent common ancestor. And even if someone tried to use the flood as an excuse for uprooting the law of superposition, again, not even a single fossil found. Now, leading up to further proof of Adam being a literal first man, as stated earlier in different words, our genetic traits passed down since Adam are a micro reflection of the macro of creation. And just as it states in the Sefer Yetzirah that God created the universe using 22 letters and 10 numbers, often called 32 paths of wisdom or creation, and a paralleled reflection of those 32 wonderful pathways. Scientific studies now show that the human body has 32 senses. And further reflecting God's design, we see that just as it is held that it created the universe using 22 letters. And in reflection, there are 22 pairs of autosomes that make up our genome. And as a sweet signature of God itself, just as there are 64 possible permutations of the nucleotides that make up our genetic code, the four-letter Hebrew name for God, having 3 letters in 4 different places, is also a total amount of possible permutations that equal 64. So just as our genetic code is literally 64 codons to 22 actions, after seeing how Yahweh relates to the number 64 and knowing that God created the universe using 22 letters, we see a purely mathematical overlay of Yahweh to 22 letters, 22 actions in which it designed. And when we see that there are 7 factors within 64, not only is this in parallel with the 7 days of creation, but those specific numbers are part of the order shown within electromagnetic frequencies, such as with a piano, every 7th note increases at a factor at a power of 2. That same geometric sequence are the beginning stages of the growth of a baby's cell. We also see within the 7th note with a frequency of 64, just as the total permutations of Yahweh, the numbers 73 and 37 recorded under the semitone and tone numbers. These numbers, which reflect themselves, are the only ones that you can times together to get 2,701, the mathematical equivalent, the gematria of the first verse of Genesis. Not only is there a parallel in our DNA sending messages in 3-letter words and the Hebrew script being a triple root structure, but our very genetic code is in sync with the base 10 numeral system, just as gematria. Now with that needed grounding onto heavier proof of a literal Adam, which began us all here on earth, showing the masterful orchestration and order throughout creation displayed by God, is the fact that just as it is held that God created the universe using 22 letters, it is recorded in the book of Jubilees that there are 22 acts of creation, and as you see here, concludes with man. And when we zoom in our microscope even deeper, we see that since Adam to Jacob, Israel, there are 22 generations, bringing all the more understanding to Exodus chapter 4 verse 22, stating, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And as we see in Leviticus chapter 12, the time frame of purification after childbirth for a male, 7 days plus 33 to come out to 40, for a female, twice 7 and twice 33 to come out to 80. We see in Jubilees chapter 3 that this was a commemoration since Adam and Eve and the time frames of which they entered the garden, and further solidifying the calendar, the clock, since Adam to David. We see that that time frame recorded in Jubilees and recorded as a commemoration in purification in Leviticus. Those numbers parallel the reigns of David and Solomon, as David reigned for 7 years over Judah, paralleling those 7 days and 6 months in parallel with the creation done on the 6th day, and then reigned 33 years over all of Israel in parallel with the 33 days, which came out to 40, the total amount of years of King David's reign. Furthermore, just as the total days for Eve was 80, the reign of King Solomon was also 40 years, to come out to a total of 80. And what many know as the ancient Israelites knew that the way that they tracked time began with and was passed down since Adam. Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 states what was needed to begin tracking time. And as chosen amongst the Israelites were keeping track of time even throughout slavery. In the book of Jubilees, it is recorded that there were 2,450 years, 50 Jubilees, since the creation of Adam to the Israelites entering the promised land. This is all the more solidified as fact with the time frames given within 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1 and Judges chapter 11 verse 26. These time frames completely matching up with a Exodus of 1446 BC, which has quite the amount of historical and archaeological evidence backing it within itself, further highlight the authenticity of our history by the grace of God. Now on to this agent's premise.
I'm gonna drop this first slide before I get into the spill I said I would in my premise. I'm gonna show you the first literal man and a man before Adam. Go to Colossians 1 and 15. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature? That's man. We go to Daniel 7 and 9. Let's show you the first man. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days it sit. He's the Ancient of Days for a reason. Y'all don't know, understand it. Whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So he has on a white garment. He has hair on his head. This is a man. He is the Ancient of Days before Adam. And I'm going to show you something else. The angel Gabriel. My opponent will agree. The angels are created before Adam. Well, let's find out what this angel Gabriel is. We go to Daniel's 9 and 21. He said, yeah, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel. So we find out this angel who was before Adam, he is also a man. So Adam is most definitely not the first literal man. Ancient of Days is one of the greatest men ever been on the earth. Till your house shall walk. That's why he gave him the power. But let's get into it, family. While some interpretations of the Bible, particularly within young earth creationists, the biblical figure Adam is often dated to have lived roughly 6,000 years ago. I agree. He's also not the first literal man. My opponent believes he is the first man of humankind. He did not show us this. But I go to answersearchjournal.org. Creation date of Adam from perspective of young earth creationism within Orthodox Christianity, family. So I will put my brother Landy in this category. A group of theologians, philosophers, and scientists have affirmed that Adam was created by God around 4,000 BC to 10,000 BCE. Family, we have Ashen, Chafee, Lyle, Moreland. We have Morris, Parker. These are all the scholars of this family. These are researchers are known as young earth creationists, family. Now we have a problem with this family because when we get into science, like the National Library of Medicine, it seems that the Negroid and the Caucasoid Mongoloid groups diverged about 110,000 years ago to 34,000 years ago. So we have man, these races on Earth already predating Adam, who was 6,000 years ago, family. Knocks him out the box. We have another problem, creation.com, a flint arrowhead, family. Archaeology team finds 9,000-year-old artifacts in Nebo Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Declares an article from recent edition of the Gazette. And we see that this predates Adam 3,000 years. Who was it, a monkey, an alien? Our brother needs to tell us these things, family. We also have humanorigins.si.edu. Early humans may have been made bags from skin long ago, about 26,000 years ago, predating Adam. They were weaving plant fibers to make cords and perhaps baskets. Some of the oldest pottery from Japan's Jomon culture, seen here, is about 18,000 years old. So they have a basket older than, according to his literal Adam, is only 6,000 years ago, which is a problem, family. We also see that the remains of the Mongol man, the first reported Australian human, are 62,000 years ago. You can go ahead and get Adam from being the literal first man out of the box, family. We have bones, we have pottery, we have artifacts, arrowheads. They all predate Adam. Now let's get into Genesis 1 and 1. I'm going to teach you what the scriptures are truly teaching you, family. It correlates with science. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now our prophets tell us what these mean. We go to Jeremiah 4 and 23. He tells us, I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form. So he tells us what that meaning is. And the heavens, they had no light. So they want to teach you that God created the sun and the moon in Genesis 1, which is all false. It was due to the cataclysm of the youngest Dryas, family, where the atmosphere was clouded, where you could no longer see the moon, suns, and stars at this period of time. And our prophet is telling us this. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens fled. It went into hiding during this cataclysm. This is documented in history. 2 Peter teaches you something. He tells us, for this they are willingly ignorant. So many of our brothers are ignorant of this fact, that by the word of Yah, the heavens were of old. He's telling you Genesis is not a creation story. And the earth standing out of the water and in the water. So we see that this is the destruction that Jeremiah is teaching us about. And we know by science, this is the youngest Dryas period. Now I go to the Human Origins Project. The end of the Ice Age and the Great Flood about 12,000 years ago, family. All this correlates literally to the Bible narrative. This is not Noah's flood. This is the flood of Genesis 1. Verse 2. The earth, 12,000 years ago, the earth moved out of its last glacial maximum. It was a period where 6 billion cubic meters of ice needed to be distributed across the planet. Time frame is now known as the Younger Dryas, when the earth was thrown back into a mini ice age for 12,000 years. Once the cold snap ended, there was a rapid global warming and rising sea levels, evidence of the Great Flood during the Younger Dryas sea level rise. So these people went into hidings, as the scripture's telling us in Jeremiah. We see Genesis 1 showing us that flood. Genesis 1 and 6 told us, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. This is precipitation. This is literally science, is what he's teaching us. Second, Ezra told us, upon the third day, you did command the waters that they should be gathered into the seventh part of the earth. Now we go back to the Human Origins Project. One point that has baffled scientists is how quickly the ice disappeared. To melt such a vast volume of glacial ice, it would take tens of thousands of years. Geologists have discovered that it vanished 4,000 years. That is a blink of an eyelid in Earth history. Showing you the greatness of the Most High, as he's shown us in Scripture when he moved the waters. Second Esdras told us he's also separated those waters into the oceans. It tells us, and kept them to the intent that some of these being planted of Yah until might serve you. So he's telling us that there were people there. And they're going to be planted, come out of hiding to serve him. And this is what these were done. And we see 4,000 years. If we take this from the second day up to when we see Adam and Eve, that literally is All the water was vanished, what they're saying, family. But we had survivors before the water fully vanished. We go to 2nd Ezra 6:47 tells us upon the 5th day. We're on the 5th day, family. When he brought forth knowledge unto the creatures and fowls, what do we find out? 2nd Ezra 6:49 tells us, then did you ordain 2 living creatures. It's over, family. The one you call is Enoch and the other Leviathan. Don't fall for these doctrines they give you. It's not the Loch Ness Monster or the Bigfoot. He literally told us he ordained 2 living peoples. How we know this? We go to the Greek lexicon. This word in Greek is shoes of a man. And we see this in 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature. This word creature is man. You are a new man. He ordained 2 living peoples. One of these peoples are called Enoch. The other group of people is known as Leviathan, the crooked serpent. That's why there's a serpent that meets Eve in the garden. It's the people called the Leviathans, the serpent people. It's what Revelation teaches you about these people. But we go to 2nd Ezra 6:51. Unto Enoch you gave us one part, which was dried up the 3rd day, that he should dwell in the same part where are 1,000 hills. We said that Enoch means Kanak, initiated. These people are the people that Adam and Eve would come from. They're not called Adam and Eve. They're called Kanak, Enoch, the people of Enoch. When he takes them from the people of Enoch, he names them Adam. He names Eve and Adam. They're both their names of Adam because it's a tribal name. He initiates them. He takes them from Kanak, names them Adam. People on earth. 2nd Ezra 6:52 tells us about Leviathan. But unto Leviathan you gave us a 7th part, namely the moist, and have kept them to be devoured, of whom you will and when. And Job teaches us how these people are. Go read the chapter Job 41. Let's jump down to verse 33. He says, upon earth there is not his like, who is made without fear. He tells these people are conquerors, killers, hunters. They're made without fear. He beholdeth all things high. He is a king over all the children of pride. So now you know these camp and other doctrines about this being a sea creature. It's all dead and false. He's teaching us about people. These people are called the people of Leviathan, the serpent. And he's a king over all the children of pride. Now we have another problem with this, family. If we take literal, God is the first man. If we're going to go to Genesis 1:26, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. So God will have to be a man to make another man in his image and after his likeness. If we're going to take this literal, what our brother is teaching you. But another problem is he created male and female in his image. So is he a hermaphrodite? He has both male and female parts. He has to explain these things to us, but I'm going to show you what the scripture's teaching. John 4:24 tells us God is a spirit. Adam was not a spirit, and Eve was not a spirit that had sex and had children. They tilled the earth. The 2 sons one of them kill each other. Make it make sense, family, if they're spirits. God is a spirit. To be created in his image is spiritual. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So we know the creation story is not literal. Why? Colossians 3:9 told us, lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds and put on the new man, that's that new creature, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. Now we know this is not even literal. Now we know the image of Yah is due to wisdom and knowledge. And that's that image of him, a spiritual image. He raised Adam up with wisdom. 2 Corinthians 3:18 also tells you, but we all with open face behold it as in a glass, the glory of Yah, are changed into the same image from glory to glory. Are people transforming, deforming every day? No, this is spiritual. Why? The verse is going to tell you. Even as by the spirit of Yah. So we know Adam was formed in Yah's image spiritually. So he's not the first literal man. The book doesn't teach that. Genesis 2:7 said, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground. You know what Job said? Job 33:6, he said, behold, I am according to your wish in God's stead. I also am formed out of the clay. He says he's also formed out of the ground. So is Job also a literal creation? No, family. And they say, oh, he used the word clay. Adam used the word dust. Well, strong definition of afar for Adam of the dust tells us dust. Clay, earth. So it also means clay, family. It means earth, ground. Now let's go down to the word used in Job. It's Comer. It also means of earth, mere, or clay. And it says dry measure, which means dust. They're literally using the same words with 2 different words, with the same meanings in the same context. So Job is here literal creation. They literally are using the same word saying he is also created out of the dust of the ground. So we know Adam is not literal creation. Because 1 Samuel 2:8 told us he raises up the poor out of the dust. That's by his spirit, family. And lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill to set them among princes and to make them inherit the throne of glory. He raises you up with his wisdom that you may inherit that throne of glory, family. We get to Genesis 2:7, family. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground. I read that. And the breath, and breathed in his nostrils the breath of life. Now, what does this mean, family? Wisdom of Solomon 7:25 told us wisdom, for she is the breath of the power of Yah. So he breathed wisdom into Adam's nostrils, not his literal nose, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Ecclesiastes 7:12, for wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. That's how man became a living soul. He breathed wisdom into Adam, and he became alive. He was no longer beating around sticks, throwing rocks. He was building structures, forming communities. But Adam formed war. We go to Genesis 3. We have another problem because this serpent, the people of Leviathan, I already showed you they existed on the 5th day. But this is why he comes in contact with Eve, because now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. What is this serpent? We go to Ezekiel 29:3. It says, speak and say, this says Yah. Behold, I am against you, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, the great dragon. So the king of Egypt, he's called a dragon. Genesis 3, this man is being called a serpent. We go to the Strong's definitions. Dragon and serpent are the same definitions, family. They mean the same things also. And we know it's talking about a man. So we already have people in the garden. So what is our brother talking about?
All right.
Let me.
Time.
Oh, okay. Hallelujah.
All right. Shout out to both debaters. We're going to get into the rebuttal round, family, right after this brief intermission. This is the Solar Vision Debate League, and we are now going into the rebuttal round. We're going to start out once again with Landy. Landy. All right, you have 10 minutes for your rebuttal, brother, whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Before we begin, I just want to clarify, being as it's 10 minutes straight, I'm not waiting for K.O.T to answer to anything here. I'm just laying out some rebuttals. Am I correct in that understanding?
Yes, you're laying out rebuttals. Now, y'all get to a back and forth on the rapid fire round. That's when y'all do the back and forth.
Excellent. I'll begin now. I just wanted to first clarify, unfortunately, K.O.T not only has an incorrect snapshot of the actual history of not just the Israelites, but our world history altogether, as I'll be going into here in a moment. But he wanted to also snapshot myself as some sort of, I suppose, what was believed after the war in Israel with Rome, as when he mentions Christianity, he completely strawmans me. And this is why before we even did this, I told him that he may want to actually check out my videos beforehand. And unfortunately, you're going to find that what you were expecting here is nowhere close, as just like Exodus chapter 4:22 states, Israel is my son, even my firstborn, as the Israelites were holding on to customs and records literally passed down since Adam and Eve, as the historical records placed forward in regards to chronological timelines in the premise showed, also holds up to being backed by the dates given biblically in First Kings and also the book of Judges. So I wanted to state further, him mentioning Christianity, he is the one that mentioned a virgin birth. He needs to look into whom the Ebionites were, who were against Paul and such claims of a virgin birth. If you look at Jeremiah 33, it states there will always be a man, not something confused for God, a man from the house of David to sit on the throne of Israel. It is unfortunately K.O.T who has some more learning to do here. Now, unfortunately, I saw here that he said that Adam represents an actual atom. And then he started speaking about mistranslations and having to know actual Hebrew, where I stated very clearly, and anyone can look up, Adam in Hebrew means humankind. Him saying it means an atom is a play in English. So the next time you state that someone needs to know Hebrew, you need to ponder upon that a little deeper. K.O.T. One more, going to Daniel chapter 7, him stating that the Ancient of Days means older than Adam. I want to see where that translation states that that is what Ancient of Days means. When literally anyone who studies the book of Daniel will see that Daniel was speaking of four beasts. And in fact, K.O.T tried to conflate what he was calling something before Adam for one of those beasts, which actually represents civilizations, which history shows actually did come to pass, literally. So, on top of that, speaking that there was a pharaoh that was likened to a dragon, okay, that was exactly as he stated. Unfortunately, it was meant in a metaphorical sense, which, when you go back to Genesis, you will see that just like a snake, it was made to crawl on its belly. History shows that snakes did indeed used to have legs, and through what they want to consider now evolution, they now crawl on their bellies. Show me where it stated Pharaoh had to crawl on his belly and eat dirt as a curse. Period. Also, going further, just as a moment here, yes, he mentioned as well God's making man in his image. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. Just as he asked, I'll explain very, very frankly what that means. In our image, after our likeness. In Genesis, it is depicting creation, the literal portrait, the literal image that God created. All throughout Genesis, it states, and God said it was good, and God said it was good after our likeness. It is literally right there for you to know exactly what it is that is being communicated to the reader. There is nothing to confuse there whatsoever. And if you allow me one moment, I did not hear my opponent start to go into the genetic records that try to state that humankind go back hundreds of thousands of years. If the audio was cutting in and out a little bit, so just in case you did try to go there as well, I want to make very clear here that science classifies Neanderthals and the like hominins as humans. Anyone here can look that up. Science classifies those species as humans just like you. However, like I showed in the premise, we are 99% the same. Even science's claims today never claim that a Neanderthal is 99% the same as you, literally. And going further, there is no ape-like ancestor that taught us how to write, let alone intertwining letters and numbers as the original script of the human being, named as such after Eber, great-grandson of Shem, let alone in a manner which reflects processes as shown in the premise that mirror the structure and the processes of our very genetic code, including our genetic code being in sync with the base 10 numeral system, which is the exact same numeral system that serves as the mathematical structure of gematria, which is a Hebrew trait. There is no record of any Phoenician or any Canaanite ever in history performing any gematria whatsoever. And when you look at how the Phoenicians have been accredited with giving the Greeks an alphabet who did utilize a form of gematria, that in itself shows you the Phoenicians who did not use gematria weren't the ones to do that. It was indeed the Hebrews. As the teacher of Alexander the Great stated, it started with Pythagoras, who you can look up right now, did indeed study with Hebrews. There have been ancient historians that have literally stated that they accredit his teaching to the Jews, literally. just a moment here. Going further, I'll leave that for the rapid fire round. Excuse me. Perfect. And well, I could save that for, well, I will indeed save that for the rapid fire round as well. To be quite honest, just about every single thing he stated here. One more thing, excuse me. He stated there was plant pottery at 26,000 years old. Now, at that time, science holds that human beings were supposed to be hunter-gatherers. And the first civilization, which I also don't agree with the date, and many will see there are many parallels with the actual Genesis records in itself. But how could that be possible when the first civilizations found is accredited to be Gobekli Tepe and similar civilizations, not going to 26,000 years, however. Göbekli Tepe, which is 13,000 years old. That completely contradicts what he stated in regards to his plant pottery at 26,000, which again, when farming, when civilization, when that phase began, which again completely correlates with the biblical chronology, when that actually was held to be taken place scientifically was 13,000 years ago, not 26,000 years ago. And with that being said, for now, I am completely good with that on time.
All right. Shout out to Landy. All right, we're gonna pass this thing now over to K.O.T. K.O.T. You have 10 minutes for your rebuttal, brother. Whenever you're ready. Camera's on. Unmute your mic. Unmute your mic, brother. Unmute your mic.
Peace and blessings, brother. Still don't know what this brother's debating about. He in a different debate still. Is Adam the literal first man? According to him, he ain't tell you nothing about it. I'm gonna tell you what he did do. He went and said, God created the universe with 22 letters and 10 numbers. What they got to do with Adam?
Just as our genetic code is literally 64 codons to 22 actions, after seeing how Yahweh relates to the number 64 and knowing that God created the universe using 22 letters, we see a purely mathematical overlay of Yahweh to 22 letters, 22 actions in which it designed. And when we see that there are 7 factors within 64, not only is this in parallel with the 7 days of creation, but those specific numbers are part of the order shown within electromagnetic frequencies, such as with a piano, every 7th note increases at a factor at a power of 2. That same geometric sequence are the beginning stages of the growth of a baby's cell. We also see within the 7th note with a frequency of 64, just as the total permutations of Yahweh, the numbers 73 and 37 recorded under the semitone and tone numbers. These numbers, which reflect themselves, are the only ones that you can times together to get 2,701, the mathematical equivalent, the gematria of the first verse of Genesis. Not only is there a parallel in our DNA sending messages in 3-letter words and the Hebrew script being a triple root structure, but our very genetic code is in sync with the base 10 numeral system, just as gematria. Now with that needed grounding onto heavier proof of a literal Adam, which began us all here on earth, showing the masterful orchestration and order throughout creation displayed by God, is the fact that just as it is held that God created the universe using 22 letters, it is recorded in the book of Jubilees that there are 22 acts of creation, and as you see here, concludes with man. And when we zoom in our microscope even deeper, we see that since Adam to Jacob, Israel, there are 22 generations, bringing all the more understanding to Exodus chapter 4 verse 22, stating, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And that
What they got to do with Adam being created, family, 6,000 years ago? First man in humankind. Let's keep going with it. Human body has 32 senses, represents God's design. What does this got to do? Okay. What does this got to do with Adam being created?
our genetic traits passed down since Adam are a micro reflection of the macro of creation. And just as it states in the Sefer Yetzirah that God created the universe using 22 letters and 10 numbers, often called 32 paths of wisdom or creation, and a paralleled reflection of those 32 wonderful pathways. Scientific studies now show that the human body has 32 senses. You may have noticed by now that each of these questions were already covered in the premise, which it would be one thing to just write this off as ignorance on the part of, quote, K.O.T. But unfortunately, he does continue to go on to prove he's nothing more than a little agent himself, and we will address that as it is continuously exposed. As ultimately, as much as you all would like to think that you're on the outside looking in on something, that you're the ones on the in, that you're ahead of something here, we will see how you trying to play chess with God continues to show itself. As again, how long term are you kids really thinking that your programs play out here with, quote, oh, I'm sure this kid is gonna debate himself right on out of the Bible eventually. You kids are a joke. But though I know you kids are barely surviving and don't have any choice yourselves, do not worry, this goes just as much for any, quote, higher-ups that you might have, whom all think they're smart, all the way up to whatever the fudge they consider higher up. There are none of you above God, and that will continue to reveal itself.
You know what? Hearing K.O.T say that it's not literal is definitely showing some growth in K.O.T. Let me just say that right off top. And K.O.T, when you keep having topics like this, you're going to debate yourself right on out that book. And you're going to be up here with your real name in a minute, standing on your real name, the one your mother and daddy gave you.
4 letters Hebrew name for God. He brought that up. What debate are you in?
The 4-letter Hebrew name for God having 3 letters in 4 different places is also a total amount of possible permutations that equal 64. So just as Our genetic code is literally 64 codons to 22 actions. After seeing how Yahweh relates to the number 64 and knowing that God created the universe using 22 letters, we see a purely mathematical overlay of Yahweh to 22 letters, 22 actions in which it designed.
I believe Yah exists. What is he talking about? He went into permeation equals 64. What does that have to do with Adam being the first man? Created around 6,000 years ago, family. Not one time did he show us that Adam was created 6,000 years ago.
Once more, we see here the showing of a study tracing back genetic mutations 6,000 years. And as chosen amongst the Israelites were keeping track of time even throughout slavery. In the book of Jubilees, it is recorded that there were 2,450 years, 50 Jubilees, since the creation of Adam to the Israelites entering the promised land. This is all the more solidified as fact with the time frames given within 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1 and Judges chapter 11 verse 26. These time frames completely matching up with a Exodus of 1446 BC, which has quite the amount of historical and archaeological evidence backing it within itself, further highlight the authenticity of our history by the grace of God.
He literally naming all these other people that science say exist, but he's telling you. He don't agree with the dates, but he literally just told you he agreed this stuff happened around 13,000 years ago, but Adam is 6,000 years old.
Which I also don't agree with the date, and many will see there are many parallels with the actual Genesis records in itself, which I also don't agree with the date, and many will see there are many parallels with the actual Genesis records in itself. But how could that be possible when the first civilizations found is accredited to be Gobekli Tepe and similar civilizations, not going to 26,000 years, however. Göbekli Tepe, which is 13,000 years old. That completely contradicts what he stated in regards to his plant pottery at 26,000, which again, when farming, when civilization, when that phase began, which again completely correlates with the biblical chronology.
And as I stated clearly, I did not agree with what is the scientifically held dating of any of the Tepe civilizations. However, when you look at the fact that this was not a hunter-gatherer campsite, and there was actual agriculture, farming tools, and animal husbandry going on, it does indeed fit not just the agriculture since Adam, but the animal husbandry since Cain and Abel, and also written of, in other words, previous to the flood.
When that actually was held to be taken place scientifically, I also don't agree with the date, and was 13,000 years ago, not 26,000 years.
What you think about this? He mentioned Göbekli Tepe, but Adam 6,000 years ago. How this stuff predating Adam, and you bringing it up like you don't believe in it? He went into genetic code 64 codons. He didn't give me nothing to rebut, because what does that have to do with Adam being created 6,000 years ago, being the first man of humankind?
By now there should be no reason to repeat that again, or it would just be overkill. But as you're noticing, our little atheist agents that want to pretend to be so sharp, to be holding debates and such, come up with serious cases of brain fog, them and their little pretender friends in whatever chats or whatnot. But unfortunately, though I'm gonna make this paralleled very baby food for whoever may be lost in the moment, and this may need to be further explained to someone in the future, years from now. But right now, to you goofy little punks, this is just like you little vampires having a hive and finding out that what dropped into your hive is a straight up slayer. No victim of you little punks. You kids are nothing in comparison to me. And as I said, whomever's bosses, etc., consider themselves this, that, or the third, whomever's president, whomever's human anything, you can scale that across the world.
Let's keep going. He said, Yah relates to number 64. Nothing to do with Adam being created 6,000 years ago. Nothing showing that the scriptures showing Adam was the little first man.
And as chosen amongst the Israelites were keeping track of time even throughout slavery. In the book of Jubilees, it is recorded that there were 2,450 years, 50 Jubilees, since the creation of Adam to the Israelites entering the promised land. This is all the more solidified as fact with the time frames given within 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1 and Judges chapter 11 verse 26. These time frames completely matching up with a Exodus of 1446 BC, which has quite the amount of historical and archaeological evidence backing it within itself, further highlight the authenticity of our history by the grace of God.
He's not showing Adam as literal first man. He's talking about some other stuff. We see a mathematical overview of Yah. 7 factors within 64. I know he put a lot of y'all to sleep because it has nothing to do with the debate. Number 73 and 37. Semitone and tone. When you gonna tell us about Adam?
Those specific numbers are part of the order shown within electromagnetic frequencies, such as with a piano, every 7th note increases at a factor at a power of 2. That same geometric sequence are the beginning stages of the growth of a baby's cell. We also see within the 7th note with a frequency of 64, just as the total permutations of Yahweh, the numbers 73 and 37 recorded under the semitone and tone numbers. Now here we see that being that the genetic code is in sync with the base 10 decimal system, there is a divisibility of the number 37, which is in sync with functions of our very genetic code. And when that number 37 is times by its reflection, it equals the mathematical equivalent of the first verse of Genesis, which once more causes one to confront the signature of creation within our very genetic code, the creation of Adam. These numbers which reflect themselves are the only ones that you can times together to get 2,701, the mathematical equivalent, the gematria of the first verse of Genesis.
Sequences, genetic codes. What about Adam? When does he come in the picture? Hold on a second. It's just crazy. He went together to get 2,701. And first verse of Genesis. What does that have to do with Adam being the literal first man? Genetic code with numeral system. It don't make any sense, family. What are we talking about here? He ain't got nothing to rebut. He went into science saying Neanderthals. That's in his rebuttal. He's talking about a whole new premise. But he said David reigned for 7 years over Judah, paralleling 7 days, showing us no proof, showing us no scripture showing how that correlates. He went to reign 33 years, came out to 40. Total years of King David. What this got to do with Adam being created 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, family?
As we see in Leviticus chapter 12, the time frame of purification after childbirth for a male 7 days plus 33 to come out to 40, for a female twice 7 and twice 33 to come out to 80. We see in Jubilees chapter 3 that this was a commemoration since Adam and Eve and the time frames of which they entered the garden, and further solidifying the calendar, the clock, since Adam to David. We see that time frame recorded in Jubilees and recorded as a commemoration in purification in Leviticus. Those numbers parallel the reigns of David and Solomon, as David reigned for 7 years over Judah, paralleling those 7 days and 6 months in parallel with the creation done on the 6th day, and then reigned 33 years over all of Israel in parallel with the 33 days, which came out to 40, the total amount of years of King David's reign. Furthermore, just as the total days for Eve was 80, the reign of King Solomon was also 40 years, to come out to a total of 80.
When is he gonna show us this? His premise already over. He tried to do a little bit in his rebuttal, and then he rebutting stuff, twisting up what I said, trying to rebut it. What's going on here, fam? We have a problem. Go get him, take him from Mount Everest, and bring him back to the debate. Why? Because he ain't debating about Adam. He's debating about man was created. You can trace man from the Y and female from the Y chromosome. Let's go to science when they do this. Is it 6,000 years ago? Then he tells you they have no bones, right? Let me go where he put that. He said they had no bones, family, for the common ancestor, right? Now, how are you going to trace us back to Adam being the first human 6,000 years ago? That's not even that far away.
I know it may seem almost like a form of bullying, going from speaking about whatever, quote, presidents, etc., or agents around the world, whichever one of you little punk heartbeats that there is out there, which is against me. However, here, in this little micro example of what would happen to any, K.O.T shows that he has no idea what the fudge it is that he's talking about, as he just conflated and confused the term most recent common ancestor with literal past mothers and fathers of the human race on back to the first Adam, when in actuality the term most recent common ancestors applies to the, quote, hominins that evolutionary teachings claim that we evolved from, yet do not have even a single fossil of what is supposedly that which we evolved from. There is no need to point out how stupid it is to state that in essence I said there was never any bones found within 6,000 years. So here we will look at what I actually said. It is all the more important to be aware that there is not a single fossil, not even a fossil, let alone a skeleton, of a most recent common ancestor which some scientists postulate humans evolved from.
But you said they got no bones and nothing for the common ancestor. So you killed yourself saying you can't even prove we come from Adam.
And once more we see the sheer ignorance of this agent here, and will continue on with whatever display of buffoonery took place here on his part, which ultimately is just an extension of this atheist push to begin with from whatever quote think tank thought they oh so geniusly orchestrated this nonsense.
You ain't trying to destroy it. I'm saying you destroyed literally what you said. So you ain't got no evidence to prove we come from Adam, of the common ancestor. You literally said that. They ain't even got the evidence of it. So how you gonna make us come from Adam when you destroyed your argument with just that alone? He went into the Exodus, 1447 BC. Talking about times, time frames, and date. I believe the Exodus exists. What does it got to do with Adam? Being the literal first man. I'm still waiting. I've been waiting the whole debate for it. I believe man exists. You can go to the chromosomes and DNA. That man exists. But when are you going to show that we come from Adam? That he's a literal first man? He said you could track time since Adam. And when you go into science, how far do they track that time for Adam? Does it go back 6,000 years ago like they believe of young creationists? So why is he giving you something that they don't even believe? They give you 100,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago date for Adam's calendar and things of such. But this ain't your Adam.
Once more, this is why I clarified that hominins are considered by science as humans. So when they are giving these quote chromosomal dates that are hundreds of thousands years of age, they are literally referring to these quote hominins.
Your Adam is 6,000 years ago. That's supposed to be the first man of humankind that you did not show one time in this whole entire debate. You can bring up all the numbers, codes, and sequences. I agree, man, exists. I agree if you want to call some of these things being to you. Hey, this ain't got nothing to do with Adam being the first literal human. I'm still waiting on it. I bet everybody out there you just put to sleep, they still waiting on it also, fam. Because you haven't showed no one. We know man exists. We're talking right now. We know they got DNA, chromosomes. You're trying to see how our frequency. He said, what? I wrote that down too. He believed in walking and talking snakes, family.
And as I'll also address this later on, as you see here, there have been transcranial magnetic stimulation device experiments which literally have proven, quote, artificial communication lines with animals. And as we see in the book of Jubilees, there came a time where God closed the channel of communication between animals and humans, as evidently these modern day scientific revelations by the grace of God show clearly that it has allowed humans to begin to tap back into that line of communication, at least enough to make words such as K.O.Ts, which atheists have loved to try to bring up to try to make one look stupid, indeed place that mirror in their face here in the quote modern day. And though it's a conversation for another day, It is literally how these governments around the world spy upon your very thoughts, let alone it does indeed get further than that. As I have demonstrated in my other sharings, you will find also this includes staring at your loved ones through your own eyes and theirs, just like a POV. And you pieces of garbage are not only going to go straight to Sheol, but you will suffer here as well. You will pay here as well, as God itself will continue to reveal itself.
He literally just told you that in his Bible. That the snake was put on his belly, trying to rebuke what I said about Pharaoh. I ain't say Pharaoh was no snake. I said the word used for dragon is the same word for used for serpent. Letting you know that this is a man being called a serpent.
Now, very clearly, just as you are seeing here in the Hebrew, the word for serpent and the word for dragon are distinct, and the word for serpent is what is used to describe what it is that approached Eve, as once more, this atheist has no idea what it is talking about.
You try to twist up what I said, but it ain't gonna work. You believe in walking, talking snakes. Now you got to prove that a snake came and talked to Eve. You still ain't proved Adam is the first literary human.
And all this talk about someone being off track, off subject, off topic, and here he is literally bringing up the serpent approaching Eve. Again, desperate, atheistic attempts to hold on to their shattered worldview.
Still waiting on. I'm still trying to figure out some stuff. He said the numbers of Yah make up the universe. Was that 7? I'm trying to remember where he put that at. All right, I write that. I can write it back though. Hold on, let me look. Oh, it's probably on this side. He said every person can be traced back to a single male and female by a Y chromosome. Who disagrees with this stuff? But you can't trace nobody back to the first human person to no one. So you killed your argument with that. And the people that science track are older than Adam. The core science people are older than Adam. Let's just go to science, see who they tracing the track. Why does science say they're older than Adam? That they're one of the oldest peoples too. Even of the Bushman people. But you still ain't show us anything. All these people predate Adam. You're trying to use science, and science don't even agree with you. He said science say people come from hominids. You see me bring anything about coming from monkeys? No, I didn't put anything of that. I showed you they found bones of humans, like the Astrolord, 62,000 years ago.
And now here we see the quote Mungo man that he was referring to, and that it was given an age, just as he stated, of 62,000 years. However, as you see here, it was dated using carbon-14 dating, which, as you will see here, is held by science to be effective up to a range of 50,000 to 60,000 years, literally rendering what he stated completely null and void. And with that being stated, I'm not surprised to pull it up now and see that whoever it was that went back and tried to cover up their poop here now approximates it to be between 40,000 and 42,000 years, of course to try to be within the range of that carbon-14 dating. Again, ultimately, you quote grown children know nothing of what you're doing, but you will pay for it. You are not bliss.
Your Adam is 6,000 years ago. Your literal Adam. I believe Adam exists. Not the first human. Not the first literal man. Remember, he called them Adam. It was taken from the people of K.O.T. Did you read the second book, second Esdras, that tells you the creation story also? There's 2 living peoples that he ordained after that cataclysm that we read in Genesis 1 of a flood before we even get to Noah. You couldn't rebut that. I ain't brought the science proving that there was a flood at that time. People, I showed him scripture. I showed him science. He ain't showed you nothing. He trying to rock you to sleep. Let's see what else. He said our genetic trace pass from Adam is a micro to a macro. Never show Adam being the first living human. Which Adam are you talking about? So you got another Adam too. How old is your Adam? 300,000 years ago. But you believe the Adam is first little man. So he dated 6,000 years ago. So you creating another Adam too, right? Remember, this is the first man Adam. They call Adam of the tribe. It was called K.O.T. It's not no first literal man. Eve is called Adam also, because both their name is Adam. It's their tribal name. They took him from the people of Enoch.
You will see later on that once more, just as stated in the premise to begin with, Adam, meaning humankind, can of course represent any number of humans, let alone obviously both Adam and Eve. And the literal nonsense of speaking that Adam and Eve were now named after Enoch, and that there was a people of Enoch, again, even logically tracing back the nonsense that he is spewing. Whom were the people of Enoch? And then where did this Enoch come from? As again, these names that he himself is stating have Hebrew origins, and what is held to being the origins of those which he is talking about. You kids actually are completely stupid, but as I said before, you kids, from whoever considers themselves the lowest to whomever considers themselves the highest, you children will pay.
K.O.T. They were initiated, raised up by wisdom. He ain't show you nothing. He trying to tell you that a fairy tale. He ain't giving nothing to rebut, family. I just have to read what he brought out because and he never once proved to us. Then he said, K.O.T, I think a 7 makes up the entire universe. When are you going to show us Adam that he's created, first little man? You didn't even go to the scripture to even try to go to some scriptures in the New Testament to get me with, because you don't even believe in some of the New Testament, but you call yourself Christ. But you're trying to tell me I'm not reading the scripture correctly. When are you going to show us, family? I know my time got to be soon up because there's nothing. I can't go to a scripture to refute what you said because you brought no scriptures to claim your point, to prove, no precepts, nothing. Go to science because you go to science that agree with my standpoint that there was a flood. You bring up Göbekli Tepe, older than Adam. Who built Göbekli Tepe, brother? You're saying Adam is another Adam now. It's him 6,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe is older than Adam. What are we doing here? You're killing yourself with your own arguments. Make it make sense.
Time.
Because it ain't making dollars.
All right. Shout out to K.O.T. We're going to get right back at you right after this brief intermission. This is the Solar Vision Debate League, and we are now going into the rapid fire round. All right. So we're going to bring up Landy, and K.O.T. got his camera on, mic unmuted. Landy, you have 10 minutes to interrogate K.O.T.
Excellent. Now, K.O.T, you stated that basically I was mentioning a whole bunch of things that had nothing to do with proving a literal first Adam. But however, if anyone was actually listening, after some of the points you mentioned, I literally stated, now after that, needed grounding, and then went to heavier proof, literally stated it just like that. So I'll give you something to try to rebut and address right now. Now, I said that the timeline from Adam to entering the promised land as held in Jubilees has a date which is in sync with an Exodus date of 1446 BC, which has heavy archaeological and historical evidence backing it, even down to the Pharaoh of that time being a second son, which is why he wasn't slain during the time that the angel of death slayed all the firstborn of Egypt.
To clarify further, when you actually read through the text, it states that Yahweh will pass over, the Lord will pass over. Verse 23 holds this will be done through a destroyer, also known as the angel of death. Ultimately, because there is nothing outside of Yahweh. This is in parallel with the angel putting down the Assyrian army, as in 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and Isaiah. Also, we see in Genesis 18, it states, I will, as words coming from God through three men, which in the very next chapter are then described as angels, as ultimately as shown in my previous sharings, we are the angels of God itself. And for any really smart skeptics who would question how grounded it sounds that an angel could lay waste to so many, do not forget that it is indeed us who are the predecessors to the Hashashin and the Shinobi, also known as the ninja. So, naturally, my line of angels, being the origins of the Hashashin, the Shinobi, the samurai, that is renowned commonly to have evolved into the ninja. Now, with that grounding, we will return to this, quote, debate.
Down to that detail, that date is backed. And it is also backed by First Kings and Judges, that there were exactly chronologically 50 Jubilees since the creation of Adam, which when you look into Jubilees chapter 50, verse 5, it states that this history, in other words, I'm paraphrasing, has, but this is literal, has been since Adam. So go ahead and address that, how both those two scriptures in First Kings and Judges also line up with the 1446 BC date, which has been calculated chronologically since Adam over to entering the promised land. And one more thing, I gave you a chance to change the name of what this debate would be about, and I asked you, if what you're saying is true, why did the Bible go through the time of listing that Adam begat Seth at a certain age? Adam died at a certain
You
age.
ready? You
Please.
can't when I about to say, man, I gotta answer something. I agree that the exodus happened. It's not what the debate is about. And I don't agree the date is 1447. Like most scholars, all of them do not even put it at 1447. So they don't even agree with you. Only some agree with that date, and some agree with the certain person you're trying to use. What, Amenhotep or something?
As you see here again, this kid is either completely ignorant or just doing the usual atheistic lie, which not only will he pay for, whatever little punk circle around him trying to encourage this nonsense like a bunch of chihuahuas will pay for, and whatever bosses of theirs that make them feel somehow comfortable enough to do this nonsense will also be paying for. You will simply reap what you sow. Keep going, geniuses. Now, after correcting that nonsense, back to this conversation with the Christ.
The third or something like that. Trying to think, but I don't. Yeah, I agree with the exodus happened. But it has to do with Adam being literal first man. The Book of Jubilee and none of those books allude to Adam being a literal creation.
Just as it is held that God created the universe using 22 letters. It is recorded in the book of Jubilees that there are 22 acts of creation, and as you see here, concludes with man. And when we zoom in our microscope even deeper, we see that since Adam to Jacob, Israel, there are 22 generations, bringing all the more understanding to Exodus chapter 4 verse 22, stating, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And once more, showing that this kid either has a mental condition of some sort, or is just completely ignorant, or perhaps a complete liar, or some type of combination of all of the above. This information was once more in the beginning premise, which once more, even though it wasn't shown for whatever reasons that it was, still was able to be heard as he was writing down his questions in regards to it. As I demonstrate here, even without the visual, it is still stated very clearly. It is recorded in the book of Jubilees that there are 22 acts of creation, and as you see here, concludes with man. And when we zoom in our microscope even deeper, we see that since Adam to Jacob, Israel, there are 22 generations, bringing all the more understanding to Exodus chapter 4 verse 22, stating, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And
The book of Jubilee and none of those books allude to Adam being a literal creation. All these books allude to him being raised up by wisdom, giving the commandments that no one was given. He was the first one given those commandments after the cataclysm, raised up by wisdom. Adam was booted up out the garden too. See, y'all don't know his name. Adam is not his name. Y'all should know who got kicked up out of heaven, kicked up out the garden.
now once more, I'm pointing out that this child was continuously stating things with regards to being a Romanized, quote, Christian, and here he is once more spreading misunderstanding, which only is found in a Romanized, quote, work. Look at how these cowardly pieces of garbage will just literally straight out lie. Once more, hoping that you are simply more ignorant than they are. And for doing so, they will be paying, more so than just looking stupid here upon review of their nonsense.
It's common sense. What man got kicked up out the garden? It's common sense. What man got kicked up out the garden? You should know his name. It's common sense. Who's the son of the morning, the first light bearer, giving the commandments?
And once more, here we see yet another push, which originally stemmed from Romanized misunderstandings, pushed here by our little Roman agent. As this kid just said,
you should know his name. It's common sense. Who's the son of the morning?
And now here we see in our book of Isaiah chapter 14 in the KJV version, as much as this version originally was commissioned to differ from different versions, of course, at the time, it once more still ultimately stemmed from Romanized misunderstanding, just like our little agents today, ignorant, as purposely clever that they think they are being very foolish. So Here, we will listen to the little pretender's question one more time and then address it. For the very short time here that you pretenders have to consider such a correction.
You should know his name. It's common sense. Who's the son of the morning?
So though this KJV version states that Lucifer is the son of the morning, as you see here, this version does not state Lucifer, just morning star, son of the dawn. So let's get deeper into the book of Isaiah and see whom this is actually speaking about. Now, as we see here, within the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest copies of the Bible in the world, preserved by the Hebrews in Qumran after war with Rome. It doesn't refer to anyone as son of the morning star. It just states shining one. So once more, let's see whom this shining one is. When you read the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, of course, beginning at verse 1, once you get to verse 4, we then see who was being called the shining one here in a very sarcastic manner, as it states that you will take up this parable against the king of Babylon and say how the oppressor has ceased. The golden city has ceased. Yahweh has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers who struck the peoples in wrath. Now, I'm going to stop here for a moment and move down to verse 11, though I encourage you to read all the way through, let alone our very ignorant agents that very smartly and intently think they're studying what's going on here. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. For those whom don't know, Sheol is hell. With the sound of your stringed instrument, maggots are spread out under you, and worms cover you. Now I'm gonna stop reading here for a second and play this punk's question once more.
You should know his name. It's common sense. Who's the son of the morning?
How you have fallen from the heaven, shining one, son of the dawn. Again, very sarcastically. How you are cut down to the ground, who laid the nation low. As once more, this is referring to the king of Babylon at that time. Though of course, I encourage you to read on. As one more time, this child was pushing the romanized twist that he was self-projecting, like the little agent that he is, from the very beginning of this quote debate. And for whoever is not one of these little cowardly weak retards on their way to Sheol, now you see the difference all the more between the nonsense these fools have pushed and the actual truth.
Sin was found in him. I agree with your dates and stories. Had nothing to do with Adam being literal first
One
man.
moment, hold on. You said there's a few things here because you were talking about Christianity first, and now you're talking about a Satan. When you actually know Hebrew, you who was talking about translations, you would know that simply means the accuser. We're not talking about a Christian.
This your new question?
No. I'm addressing.
I never
mentioned.
I never mentioned that the Bible. See, you alluding to the wrong name already. I said you should know his name. See, y'all don't know his name. Adam is not his name. Y'all should know who got kicked up out of heaven.
And now you hear this romanized twist one more time. Where does it state anything of any other getting, quote, kicked out of heaven? In fact, when you look at the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, which very clearly, as you see here, was directed at whom was the king of Tyre. The part of this book overlays in metaphoric parallel what came of this king with the ousting from the garden.
You should know his name. It's common sense. Who's the son of the morning?
And at this point, it is becoming overkill. But this nonsense also deserves every bit of looking like the stupidity that it is and has been.
What is the name? What is the
That's
name
your,
of this
you
song?
brought up Satan because
Tell
you
me.
believe in Christian doctrine. I
Not
never
at
gave
all.
a name.
Not,
So,
no.
what's your
Tell
question?
me, what is
for
the
debate?
name? What is the name of
What?
this son of the morning star? What's his name?
Oh, didn't hear what I said?
What was it?
Adam is not Adam's name. Adam was kicked out of heaven. He was kicked out the garden.
Where does it
Sin was
state
found in
this?
him. It literally in Genesis.
It
He
states
placed in the
this in
garden.
Genesis?
He placed in the garden cherubims, right? Flaming swords.
Hold
Do
on.
what? To get Adam up out that garden, right? He couldn't come back, right? Why did they do that?
It says in Genesis that God created the heavens and the earth. Why are you now conflating the garden, which was on earth, with heaven?
What heaven is the sky, brother. You don't even understand nothing. There's a spiritual realm, heaven, and he's talking about the sky in the earth. He's talking about the sky. See, you don't understand what you even read.
No,
But
no,
what
I
is your
do
question?
know. I
What's
do
your
know
question
heavens
for
means
Adam being a literal
no,
man?
no,
You got
no,
any
no, no,
question?
no. I do know. I know heavens means the skies.
So
But
you want to
you
debate about
just
something
said
else right now? Go
no,
ahead.
no. You're the one who said there's a garden in the skies. Where does it
I didn't
say
say
that?
nothing about a garden in no sky.
That
That's
is
your
exactly
Christian.
what you just conflated.
That's what you interpreted from your
No,
Christian mind,
that's
though.
exactly what you just
Dude.
conflated.
Cause I said Adam booted out of heaven. You taking up in the heavens, man.
And
See,
Before we move on to further proof of the point that I'm about to display here, let us read once more from Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. How you have fallen from heaven, shining one, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. Now, keeping to the version of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we see here how you are cut down to the ground. And then for this instance, continuing on to the next verse, you said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Again, going forward for these purposes, right to verse 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, which once more means hell. Before we go on to further evidence of what I was stating, how you have fallen from heaven, shining one, you have been cast down to the earth.
I said Adam booted out of heaven. You taking up in the heavens, man.
And
See,
As here we see in Isaiah chapter 66, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. And here we see in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 22, it is it who sits above the circle of the earth. And when we review Genesis, beginning with chapter 11, verse 7, God speaking to its angels, come, let us go down. Genesis chapter 18, verse 21, I will go down. Now the Hebrew word shamayim, translated to heavens, plural, or sky, the Hebrew turns out to be perfectly accurate as we see the atmosphere of the earth is literally made up of layers. However, as perfectly as it fits our human capabilities as we observe, of course, that this is indeed a fact, that still, of course, does not mean that there isn't more to it. So, of course, one is not limiting God to a single place, as just as in Proverbs chapter 15, verse 3, the eyes of the Lord are everywhere. So, of course, I understand that the goodness, the grace that God bestows upon us here on earth can many times be described as being heavenly or heaven. However, to try to conflate and then assert what he did, as you see here, none limit God, of course. And one more point in connection with let us go down, I will go down, is of course Jacob's ladder, wherein the stairway was resting on earth, and angels were ascending and descending to and from heaven.
Hold on, and Adam's
Let's talk about a
literally
kingdom,
stop, wait, stop.
man. What's
I'm
wrong with you? That's
interrogating you.
Adam's
Hold on,
kingdom.
stop. You said because Adam was booted out of heaven, and it says Adam was kicked out of the garden. How is
The
that not
garden is
conflating? Hold
Jerusalem.
on,
It's heaven because
hold
it is
on.
the kingdom
How is
on
that
earth he
not
was given.
conflating the two?
Because you don't understand the book literally. I just told you.
Where
Heaven
does
is a
it? Hold
condition
on,
and
I
also
don't
it's a
understand the
kingdom on
book
earth. You're
literally.
thinking of heaven, heaven and God.
You just conflated them.
Furthermore, when we look at Deuteronomy chapter 32, we see the Most High God commanding from heaven on down, listen, you heavens, and I will speak. Hear, you earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teachings fall like rain, and my words descend like dew. Now, of course, you're welcome to continue reading to make sure that I'm not just trying to jump and stitch one verse with another that really has no correlation. But as you will see, that is not the case. And as we began speaking of the heavens listening and the earth hearing, teachings falling like rain, words descending like dew, when we get to verse 22, for a fire will be kindled by my wrath, one that burns down to the realm of the dead below, Sheol.
That garden. Rashi's desire
You
is
just conflated
Jerusalem.
that.
That is the garden that Adam was in. See, you don't even know the book.
Where
That
does
is
it
that heaven.
state that?
Throughout the scriptures, man. Now you want to debate
Take
about
me
something different.
where?
Man, look at this guy right here.
You're
Is
just
Adam?
you're
You want
you're
me to
just
ask
rambling
questions,
off,
or
and
you
what you
gonna
said makes no
listen?
sense.
You supposed to be asking me something about this debate.
And
You
not
want to
only
debate me
that,
about a whole
in
nother topic right now.
Jubilees, as I
Go ahead.
did state, in Jubilees chapter 50, verse 5, which anyone can look up, it states very clearly that our calendar, our history has been traced back since Adam. Jubilees chapter 50, verse 5. The book of Jubilees was found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, guarded by the actual Hebrews, which were writing them there. It is a very much authoritative book. Chapter 50, verse 5 states this has been since Adam. Address that.
What's your question, brother? Because
Why, if it's allegorical as you're stating, why is it stating that
question
the
simple. What's your question?
actual the dates that you said you agree with, and then went back and said you don't agree with this one though and this one though, that they were keeping time since
I said
Adam?
I agree with the Exodus. I agree the Exodus happened. I don't agree the exact date of 1447, just like most scholars don't. So which scholar are you using? You want us to all agree with the scholar? No, all
Chapter.
scholars do not even agree on that. But I want to answer your
Hold on, I'm
previous question. Then we can
interrogating
see
you
on
right now,
it's
brother.
about that
Excuse me.
guard.
I'll
Hold on, I'm
answer all
answering your
your
question.
questions.
No,
I'll
no, I'm
answer
finna
all
answer
your
your.
questions.
I'm answering your question from your
Go
previous
ahead.
question. Ezekiel 28 and 13. You have been in the garden of Yah.
Now once more, for those that may not remember, we just went over this book, chapter, and these verses, which were addressed to the king of Tyre at the time, and as you saw, have nothing to do with heaven, though it did use Eden as a parable. Still nothing to do with heaven, as now in a frantic panic, he once more tried to conflate, just to make himself look all the more stupid once more.
That's our land. Go back and look at the scripture. But I thought you thought I was gonna look crazy. I said, let me go ahead and answer this question for him.
No.
Jerusalem is
Say it
garden of Yah.
again.
That is our heaven. Ezekiel
Where does
28
it
and
show?
13.
Hold
Read the
on,
chapter.
stop.
It tells you that, brother. Now let's continue on.
You
go
wait,
read it, you
no.
understand.
Let's
You know
address
the
that.
book.
Stop. No. You're not continuing on. Ezekiel said you've been in the garden of Yah. Where does it say that that's heaven?
You've been in the garden of Yah. What land is that? Is that what land?
No. Stop.
No.
Now
We
where in
spoke about the
Ezekiel?
garden of Eden. Hold on.
Now
No.
stop
The calls
yelling.
at the
Why are
heaven.
you getting
We ain't gonna play
emotional?
games.
I know you're nervous, but stop running. Where does it say there in Ezekiel that
on,
means
man.
heaven? Where does it say that means
Listen,
heaven? Where
don't
do
try
you
to
draw?
flip what we were talking about. No.
Where do you
We're
get that?
talking about the garden of Eden.
You're not going to
That's
tell
Jerusalem.
me
Hold on, no,
what
play
I'm going to
game.
interrogate you
Kingdom,
about. Is
that
anyone
kingdom of
hearing
heaven.
this nonsense?
Let me go to Revelation then.
No.
The
You're
kingdom
trying to
coming on
tell
earth.
me
You
how I'm
don't
going to
believe New
interrogate
Testament. Hold on.
you. That would be cute.
Hold on.
But hold on. No. We're going to address what you're saying.
You want me to answer your question, brother?
We're going to address what you're saying. Hold
on.
on. We went to Ezekiel.
12 tribes.
Stop yelling. We went to Ezekiel. Where does it say?
Where it's called heaven.
Where does it say?
So once more, we all saw our little Roman agent try to self-project his Romanized, quote, Christian doctrine on others. And here you see once more, his, quote, understanding is based off nothing else but his Romanized nonsense.
Hey, stop yelling. Why are you getting so emotional? I know your
worldview's
worldview's unraveling. But where in Ezekiel where you stated you've been in the garden of Yah?
I am showing you in Ezekiel that it's Jerusalem. We go to Revelation showing the kingdom of heaven.
Why are you going to Revelations? No.
To show you that it's heaven. You're dead now. Just continue on, man. You ain't got no understanding.
Don't jump. Show me in Ezekiel where you drew that interpretation. Where does it say it means heaven?
I told you, brother, we're dealing with the Garden of Eden. I told you Jerusalem is the Garden of Eden. I said that was our heaven. Brother, we go to Revelation showing our kingdom of heaven brought on earth. It is our land. The same garden of God is Jerusalem. That's the Garden of Eden, brother.
You know you're saying you know how you're saying Jerusalem.
Oh man. Nah, I don't know that.
You're not?
I don't know that.
Look at this. One more time.
I didn't know that. You're telling me something.
What you just said is not found in Ezekiel. What you just said was your own exegesis, your own K.O.T. interpretation.
You ain't asked me nothing to do with this debate right now. What you asked
nowhere.
Me? The whole question around is just Gnostic because it nothing to do with the debate.
Nowhere. Let's
continue on with this new debate we're having now.
Everyone sees you running.
No, we're in a new debate. Continue.
Everyone sees you running. Now, where in Ezekiel does it state the garden is heaven, like you were just saying?
This man playing. This man.
So it's not there. Okay. Since it's not there, next question. You didn't know. So next question.
Go ahead.
You made it up. So next question.
Play games with you.
Next question. Now that you made that up, why is there a chronology since Adam? Why does it state Adam begot Seth at 130? Why did it state that he died at 930? If he's purely allegorical according to you and those who were recording it, why did it say he died then?
It gives a chronology because I clearly taught you what the scriptures teaching you. Adam was given the commandments and wisdom after the cataclysm. Adam then began to hold dates. The other people running around like wild beasts, still conquering savages. That was at the time people were still savages coming out of caves, man. After the younger dryas, fighting each other. Adam was given wisdom to have law.
Time. All right, so we're gonna pass it over to K.O.T. You have 10 minutes to interrogate Landy whenever you're ready.
Peace, brother Landy. Let me ask you something. Is God a man?
I was stating earlier that as Numbers 23 verse 19 states, God is not a man. So I was stating earlier, I've already answered you. You weren't paying attention.
Adam was created in God's image. What is God then?
I was already stating that when it said, let us,
What
I'm
is God?
answering you. I have already stated that when it said, you said, what is God? Listen, I heard you write in your bulletin point that God is a spirit.
Facts.
I will accept what you're trying to express, but of course, God is
Facts.
a lot more than that. But I understand what you're trying to state. But God is not a man, to
So
answer you directly.
so he created man in his image. So you agree with me already? He's a spirit, so we know that. So how is Adam a literal creation to you if he's created in God's image?
Excellent. Now, as I stated earlier, and you obviously didn't catch, I stated God's creation, as it states in Genesis. Remember, as you're going through the story of creation, it says, and then God said it was good. And then God said it was good. As it's taking you through the portrait of creation that took place, us, this world, this image, that is its image. After its likeness is, of course, the process of creation, the laws, the statutes, and commandments, the keeping track, unlike
You,
what became heathens.
you know, you're killing yourself.
No, you're killing
How
yourself.
is Adam a literal creation then?
What do you
Nothing you
mean?
just
How is
said
it?
is literal no more what you just said. Now you just gave us all this. He's all this, but we created his image. So tell us how was Adam a literal creation now?
What do you? Wait, hold on. Tell you what?
How was Adam a literal man, created man, 6,000 years ago?
This is why I showed the
According to what you
premise.
just told us.
No, hold on. This is why I built up the premise in the way that it did, showing that again, the inner micro, what you tried to throw away, the inner micro, there was a macro of reflection. You literally see your genetic makeup mirroring literally as it stated God created the universe. So you just said how. And I already went through all that, but again, it
You ain't
just
got nothing,
completely
man.
shook the
This crazy.
nonsense that you're talking about, just like this.
You ain't got
You
nothing. This
just
crazy.
simply are shaken. You
I'll
can't
ask you
handle it.
another question. You dead. You just got
No,
nothing.
you are shaken.
Okay.
You could
Are the
try your
Adam
best to try to
are the
sway the
angels?
minds of
Hold on,
people,
brother. This is my
but
question
you couldn't
around. You
answer
dead.
anything.
You ain't got nothing. Are the angels created before Adam?
Now, here's the thing. One more time, I was answering this already. It said in Jubilees chapter 2 that when God says, let us make man in our image, it is speaking to its angels, which is indeed us. This is why let us
Are
make man.
angels before the Adam that we're speaking of? Are the angels that we see in the scriptures? Are they created before the Adam we see in the scriptures?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, brother. Just as I brought in Daniel's 9:21, the angel Gabriel.
Now, as we see here, once more, these atheists really just hope that you haven't read what they're talking about. But ultimately, it's simply them who are going to appear like the idiots they are hoping that we are.
The angel Gabriel.
Now, here you see it state clearly that Gabriel is a man. Now, even though I demonstrated myself that the angels are indeed us, still, as you got from hearing him speak just a moment ago, that is not what his understanding was, as he was literally trying to project a romanized depiction, perhaps even something with feathers that throws him off all the more when he sees it saying flying quickly within these verses, as even today saying he or she was flying quickly can be used simply to express that they were moving quickly or swiftly. And as you are seeing, there is not a single version here which calls the Gabriel mentioned in Daniel an angel in the way that this kid meant it. But look through, and it is unanimous that they state he is a man. And for those who would want to argue that in chapter 8 it states, like the appearance of a man, when you read on, chapter 9 clearly states, the man I had seen in the earlier vision. We also see the detail of one of the men in this vision dressed in linen, as a like to Ezekiel chapter 9. And as we see here, of course, the Hebrews indeed wore linen. Not only this, but though I've placed very groundedly that of course we are indeed the angels of God. However, in the way that this kid was meaning it, what in the world would angels be needing any human clothes for? Once more, in the way that he meant it, which we will go deeper into here in a moment.
He's created before Adam, right? That's one of those angels.
And there you hear him state it out of his own mouth.
He's created before Adam, right? That's one of those angels.
As he just tried to conflate what is happening in the book of Daniel in the 6th century BC with before the creation of humankind. Who was God speaking to when it stated, "Let us make man in our image"?
It says, and God said, let us. I'm asking you, who is the us?
And as you see here, recorded in the book of Jubilees, on day 1, God created its angels. And then it goes on, and thereupon we saw its works, and praised it, and lauded before it, on account of all of its works. For 7 great works it created on the first day. And once more, Jubilees is stating that we saw its works on the first day. And further clarification to the answer of who was God speaking to when it stated, "Let us make man in our image." Here we read of God in direct communication with us, its angels, as Jubilees holds, and then it said unto us. The fact that we are its angels is not so directly etched within the biblical books that you may be more accustomed to, such as in Genesis 18, it is held that 3 angels visited Abraham and Sarah. And as you are seeing here, the text within Genesis 18 states 3 men visited. Ultimately, before 2 of those men went to Sodom, which you will then see in chapter 19, verse 1. They are then recorded as angels. Now once more, this frantic kid just tried to hustle you by trying to conflate the creation of the angels before mankind with the vision of Gabriel, which was taking place in the 6th century. I go into more detail as to that fact in this video here.
Now, hold on. You giving names like Gabriel is very
Gabriel.
Christian. Stop. Oh, very Christian.
That's what
You-
it put in the text. No, we
No,
ain't
no,
gonna
no.
play
What
games.
text? Very Christian text. This
In
is
these
why you
scriptures in the
expected me.
Hebrew.
Now to clarify what I am meaning besides romanized is that when you look at the book of Enoch, you will indeed see the names of angels. However, once more, this is already during the time of Enoch, and he is naming once more actual angels, actual humans, such as those which were passing down this knowledge to him from their fathers, their mothers, before them, back to Adam the first. As here we see the studying of this fragment reveals that Enoch was copying, preserving, passing on the information that was passed down to him.
Very Christian.
That's what
You-
it put in the text. No, we
No,
ain't
no,
gonna
no.
play games.
What text?
We know-
Very Christian text. This
in
is
these
why you
scriptures in the
expected me.
Hebrew, warrior of Yah, also savior
No,
of Yah. That's what these
nowhere
things
in
mean.
any of these versions. Let me make
Gabriel
this
is a
clear.
name to you, but when we say it, we know the
Nowhere.
meanings behind it.
Hold
No,
on.
don't play games.
No,
You
no.
agree?
This is
Hold on.
very literal.
No, this
This
my
is
question
very
around.
literal.
You
Go ahead.
no. This my question around. You agree that the angels are before Adam?
Go
I asked you
ahead.
about angel Gabriel. I just said to Gabriel, the warrior of Yah, that angel, or the savior of Yah. What if you want to use a title? Because we know what that stuff means. You agree with me before Adam. Okay, Daniel 9:21, he says Gabriel, or that angel, is a man. So how in the world is Adam the little first man when you just said the angels are before Adam?
Okay.
And he's a man.
Now,
I literally read it in my premise. You
let's
couldn't
make
refute.
this.
How you gonna refute that? Go ahead.
Let's make this very clear. One more time. Daniel speaking of civilizations. And now you
No, he
state,
ain't, man. He
hold on,
said he in a vision.
stop.
Don't
I'm
play no
gonna
game, these
answer you.
people.
KOT,
Everybody go to
give
Daniel chapter 9
me a
21.
second.
He's in the vision. Seeing the angel.
KOT,
Don't let him man lie to y'all.
give
Now this child just stated that I was lying, as you are seeing here. In the particular vision that he is speaking of, it is still literally speaking of civilizations. In the scriptures he was speaking of, particularly Persia and Greece. And it is renowned that even leading up to the chapter and verses that he thought would help him here, Daniel chapter 7, speaking of 4 beasts, is in regards to 4 civilizations spoken of metaphorically.
me a second
What the real
to
man
answer
talking
you.
about?
Let me finish my answer. Now,
He tell you who
okay,
he's seen.
let me
They
finish
give him the
my
vision.
answer.
Go ahead.
You continue to ask me. So, hey, let's give the name Gabriel for this argument's sake.
Warrior of
Hey,
Yah, whatever
was
you want it to be. It
Gabriel
don't matter.
just
That
stop.
angel.
Now,
Go.
was Gabriel made before Adam? I just told you that when
You say
God
yes,
said,
angels are. You said they
stop,
are.
I'm why are you cutting off my answer? Are you scared?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You said God, they were talking about us. You said that. But you agreed these angels are before Adam already. I don't know what you're gonna say, man.
Hold
What do
on.
you think this is?
Stop. Now you just said, if you knew what I was saying, were you just trying to kick up some dirt a little bit ago?
You died in your argument. You said he's before
I'm sure
Adam,
you would like
and
that to be the
and I
case.
read he is a
Now,
man.
if
So
you
we know
could
for a
control
fact
your
Adam's not the little
emotions,
first man because
speaking
the
of a
angel is a
man,
man.
if
So
you
let's
could
play.
control
And
your
he telling you we
emotions
are
for a
angels.
second,
And he told you
here
that
I'm
his
gonna
angels before
finish.
Adam.
Now
He killed himself.
you said, how is it made? How is this angel made before Adam?
I ain't asked you how. I said
Stop.
is he before Adam. I ain't asked you nothing about how.
Stop.
Don't play no
Now,
games. I ain't asked you nothing about no how created nothing. I said is he before
Adam,
Adam. That's what I asked you.
I actually was addressing that as well. You did state that.
Nah, you said
And
I said
Adam,
created. I ain't said how nothing.
and
Don't play that.
Adam
You answer what I
means
said.
humankind. So when you say, hey, was this angel made
Man,
before?
God don't mean no
Stop.
humankind in these scriptures.
Stop.
Why you
I'm
keep lying?
answering you.
Nowhere in the book it
I'm
says that.
answering you. Are you scared? Again, at
No,
least
you
act
dead. You just
like an
lying.
adult.
The
If
devil
you're
is in you. You're a
scared, you're
liar. You're a
scared.
liar. Your
But
father
at
is the
least
devil.
take it like a
You
man
said Adam and
or a woman,
humankind. You
whatever
never
it
see
is
it
that
mean
you do.
humankind in the Bible. It don't say
Now
that.
look,
This
what
man
do you
made that up.
mean?
You go to
You were the
dictionary
one
for
who was
people's
saying
opinion.
you need to
And they
know
gonna
what
tell
the
you it means ground,
translations mean.
earth,
You're the one who
man.
said you need to know what the
Go ahead.
translations mean, and now you're trying to throw the translations out of the
I'm
window.
teaching you, brother. You need to
So
listen.
hold
Go
on.
ahead.
You're the one
You
who
know
said
my
you
question
need to
round, right? Go
know
ahead.
what the words mean, and
Get
now
my
you're
next
trying to
question
throw
ready.
what they mean out of the window. What in the world? You're completely lost. But hold on. I said that when God
Okay,
said,
that's my next question.
let us make man in our image, It was speaking to us, its angels. So when you ask me,
Hey, you
so
killed
when you
yourself
ask
again.
me,
You said
is
he's
this
before Adam. It's
angel
over.
before
It's
Adam?
over, brother.
Obviously, it was made before humankind. And one more
Thank
time,
you. You
Daniel,
dead. Thank you. The
Daniel, you're
angel before Adam. He's
completely
a man.
conflating.
He's just
Daniel's
confirmed. Yes, they're talking about
addressing
he's confirming he's
civilizations.
before Adam.
You
Debate's
are
over with.
saying,
You agree
and
with
by
me?
the way, you
We good
still
to go,
didn't
brother.
answer how
But hold
Ancient
on.
of Days
This ain't your
means
question
before
around. It's
Adam.
mine. Hold on. I got another question. What did he call Adam and Eve? Did he call Eve Adam also?
I'm so glad you said this because you just killed
Go ahead.
yourself.
No, I killed
Trying to,
nothing. That's their tribal name.
you
I
just
told you what it means.
you
Go ahead.
just killed
They call
yourself
Adamites, the
trying to
Adams. That's their
state
tribe.
that it means
Go ahead.
tribe. Because
Go ahead.
literally, as you just asked me, just cut yourself,
Go
as
ahead.
Adam means humankind. So
I asked you what if
obviously,
Eve and Adam name both call Adam. What? Answer the question.
humankind
Yes or no?
literally pertains to the first two
No, it does
humans.
not. That's y'all
You can
Christianity
call
thought. No, that's the
any.
Now here you see our child has become so unraveled that he just stated that the definition of Adam, meaning humankind, which he not only was agreeing to throughout this entire debate, but on top of it, tried to use the definition of humankind to support him trying to argue that it was referring to multitudes of people, now is trying to state that it cannot refer to a quantity of people, and that is now some sort of romanized thought. Look at your geniuses here, kids. Try to come a lot harder, as one more time, your lies ultimately, they are all finished. You will pay.
Christian. You
Amount
go to
of
dictionary, you
humans,
get that from Christian
Christian
thought. You know that's
you
Christian
can
thought, and they
call
no, they ain't
any
playing this
amount
game
of
with you.
humans
It ain't working
Adam.
that way, brother.
So
It ain't working that way,
obviously,
brother.
it can
That's it.
call Adam
My
and Eve
question
Adam.
was, is Adam and Eve called Adam? That was my question. Don't play no game. Me trying to come up with a narrative. That's a yes or no question. Is
Just
Adam
in
and
case,
Eve both named Adam? His name ain't even Adam. Are they the man and woman created? Are they both called Adam?
now
Because that's literally what he said.
one more
He
time.
created man. Hold on. Is man and woman both called Adam? Go ahead. I'll get
No.
it. Get it.
Now
Get
one
it.
more time.
Go
For
ahead.
those,
You don't get that
are
your
you
whole
gonna
science about
keep
Adam
trying
and
to
the man and
interrupt?
woman are
Are you
both Adam.
scared?
You never
Look,
put the woman in here.
he won't shut
Go
up
ahead.
to have his own question answered. Now
You
one more
laughing at
time.
yourself. Let's
For
go.
those who didn't hear through his nervousness and of course trying to scramble away,
Let's go,
I
brother.
just said you being able to call any amount of humans Adam obviously can fit Adam and Eve.
This
Duh.
Christian. Dang. Christian. Christian.
And then
Yeah,
him
it's over
trying to
with. You
straw
agree
man,
Gabriel is before Adam.
him,
You say he's us.
him trying to straw
You
man
agreed he's a
Christian
man.
again goes to show
Debate
one
been
more
over.
time
Oh,
he
and we're
has
gonna get to
no
the ancient of
idea
days.
what
Hold
he's
on.
talking about.
Hold on. This is my round, brother.
He's
The
talking
ancient of
about all
days,
he
brother.
knows.
Hold on. Does the ancient of days have on a robe? Does he have on a white garment?
One more time. I'm so glad you
Man, don't
stop.
answer what I asked you, man.
Stop.
Does the ancient of days have on a white
Don't
garment?
worry about
That's my
you don't
question.
control how I answer.
No. You don't
don't
control what you want to
how
do
I
here.
answer.
I asked a question.
So
You
if
can't
you
answer a
want to
question
hear
I didn't
your
ask you, man.
answer, try
I
to
want to
remain
answer my
silent like
question,
an
not
adult.
something you want to create for yourself to answer.
Try to remain
Go ahead.
silent like an Adam would know how to do.
It's crazy. Simple question.
Try to
Ancient of
control
days have
your
a white
emotions.
garment on? Does
Now,
the
one
ancient
more
of days
time.
have a white garment on?
Daniel is speaking of allegory. He's not speaking of an actual human being. Literally.
Why he ain't talking about human beings? Hold on. Did this man have woolly hair on his head? That's why
Now,
it becomes allegory because you know he's a Negro.
hold
and you
on,
don't want
stop
him to
right
be.
there.
Now, as the Most High God would have it, I was already at the point of about to be making a point and didn't exactly catch what he just said, which would have been so much worse for him in the moment had I had done so, let alone you little punk pretender. The many times that someone can go back throughout this quote debate and your sorry sack of garbage self and whatever little punk agency you represent, you soft little B word, just like that, How many times did you call me brother in and throughout this quote debate? Again, you sad, soft, little punk. How cowardly of you. And to any other overhearing this, if you little punks, first and foremost, how stupid when I am the one whom is literally proving a literal Adam and Eve ultimately that all of you come from. How retarded of you, the little masterminds behind these scenes who come up with these little questions here. As obviously this kid's a retard, but ultimately, as are you. You literal children are nowhere near my level. And if any of you, whatever shade of brown ultimately that you are, you freaking imbeciles, ever made any of my family, be it because they are darker than you or lighter than you, uncomfortable, you would end up in a trash can that resembles the very mouth ultimately you are speaking with. As much as throughout this conversation you have spoken about allegory, which I have proven to be literal.
That's why it becomes allegory because you know he's a Negro.
Hold on, stop right there.
And before we go on, once more, how many times do you think that this child referred to me as brother throughout this conversation? This not only speaks as to the character of this child, but once more, whomever it surrounds itself with. As you little atheists here, you really aren't very smart. It's really not cute. And you will not win any chess game, let alone any war with God.
Let's stop.
This man got woolly hair on his head and he wearing a white robe. We ain't gonna play games, man. What's wrong with these people?
When you
It's
look
crazy.
at Isaiah, you
that's because y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When you
first
look at
created man was him, Lord of the earth.
Now there are a few things here. One, he literally just conceded that there was a first created man, in his own words.
First created man was him, Lord of the earth.
Now on top of that, after speaking about all this Romanized theology, he literally just tried to state that God is on earth incarnate.
Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When you
first
look at
created man was him, Lord of the earth. Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When you
first
look at
created man was him, Lord of the earth. Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man. Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man. Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When you weren't paying attention,
Adam was created in God's image. What is God there?
I was already stating that when it said,
what is
I'm
God?
answering you. I have already stated that when it said, you said, what is God? Listen, I heard you write in your bulletin point that God is a spirit. I will accept.
Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When I heard you write in your bulletin point that God is a spirit, I will accept.
Y'all call him the Most High. Don't even know it's a man.
When I will accept what you're trying to express, but of course, God is a lot more than that. But I understand what you're trying to state.
And to clarify, of course, here you are hearing me say, I heard you right. Now, that goes both in regards to WRITE, where I did see that he wrote out in a bulletin, literally previous to this debate, that God is a spirit. And also, as you know, we heard his presentation in where, along with his bullet points, he said God is a spirit.
You look at Isaiah.
Y'all don't know this.
When you look at Isaiah, you will see that what became of Israel in that moment was
this is not your premise round.
Was likened.
This is my questioning you. No, you ain't. You went all into something else, man.
Time.
This man finna go to something else.
Time.
You're
All right. Shout out to both debaters. We're gonna go ahead and wrap
So
this
Lord,
thing up with the
Blessings, brother.
I
closing.
thought you brought me a
Go
warrior
ahead,
here.
brother. Peace
I'm
and
just
blessings,
being a
brother.
little chicken.
Yeah,
You
Run
know,
you got the
scared.
right
head
after this
chopped
brief
off.
intermission, family, this is the
Hallelujah.
Solar Vision.
Hallelujah, family. Peace and blessings to the family. I hope our brother didn't put y'all to sleep. I showed you what I was going to do in my opening. What the debate was about. Is Adam the literal first man? Nowhere in our brother's premise has he showed you this. Debate is not, is there an existing first man? Can man be traced back 300,000? Adam, that's why I send around the Bible, but we can use other sources. See, you don't get it. We go to the Bible. This Adam is 6,000 years ago, according to young creationists and these scientists that believe in this Adam being the first literal human. He believes it to be the first literal human, so he agrees with the same Adam they're speaking of because he gave you the date from Adam to Moses, Noah, and Moses. So we're clearly talking about this Adam from 6,000 years ago. He brings up Neanderthals that are older than Adam. He agrees with scientists saying this. I showed you the literal first man is the Ancient of Days, has on a white garment, woolly hair. He wants to make an allegory because we know it is a Negro. I brought out in Daniel 9:21, showing you the angel Gabriel is a man. Literally read it to you. My brother literally agreed that he is before Adam. He literally agreed with me, family, that this angel is before Adam and he is a man. He literally said they're a man because he said they're talking about us too. See, so he literally killed himself in an argument. He jumped on my side, agreeing that Gabriel, this warrior of God, warrior of Yah, this angel is a man and that is before Adam, showing that Adam is not the literal first man. Because the messenger, that what angel mean, this messenger is older than Adam. So our brother destroyed himself in that argument. The Heavenly Father is a spirit. No man has seen the Most High. Y'all call him the
Also
Most High, don't
see
even know it's a man.
when
Even Yahushua has told you that. But I went into scientific facts also, showing you how this is what they believe Adam been 6,000 years ago. I went to National Library of Medicine, showing you that the Negroid and the Caucasoid Mongoloid races, they're over 110,000 years old. They're also 34,000 years old towards the minimum. Predating Adam. Our brother bring up Globeke Tepe, predates Adam, killing himself once again in his arguments. I showed you how they found an arrowhead, family. Predates Adam by 3,000 years. They found a pottery from the Japanese culture of the Jomon culture. He tried to strip on what I said and flip my words. I didn't say what he said, and it was 18,000 years, not 26. They said they date around making of things from humans from 26,000. I went into the Mungo man. They have his bones. The Astroloid, Mungo man, he's dated to 62,000 years ago. They have his body. Bones. Predates Adam. Our brother believes in the literal Adam. He kept giving you a calendar that dates from that Adam to Moses. So we know he agrees with the 6,000-year-old Adam. He can't lie to you. But he's trying to show you scientists of an Adam that exists before the Adam he thinks of. They want to use the name Adam because it means man also. I showed you in Genesis 1, the water was flooded. The earth was flooded with a flood, family. I went to the prophet Jeremiah showing you exactly what the earth being void and without form meaning, that it was a cataclysm. Peter said that the earth was standing in and out of water, but the heavens were of old. This is not a creation, is what the prophet Peter said.
I could have stopped this at a multitude of points, but as you see here once more, this kid is strictly a Roman agent. He may have had hand in voting for their last quote-unquote pope, for all you know.
Peter said,
You little drones of Rome will not be able to say that I did not warn you, as ultimately you all lose this war, and the true line of David, the true line of Christ, since Adam to David to Mashiach, me, of course, is alive and breathing, just as prophesied in Jeremiah 33:17. And this does mark the end for you clowns.
prophets even speak of. I showed these, family. I showed Human Origin Project proving that ice age, that flood in Genesis 1, dating.
And as you are seeing here, the date that he just went on about does not agree with what is actually held as the last ice age, as you are seeing here.
To the same time period, because they put the 4,000 years after it. That literally gave us the date that science is giving us to Adam. and to the people of the fifth day, because the sixth day, that 6,000 year period, these are not 6 literal days, these are 1,000 years apart. People were seen on the fifth day. I proved in my premise the people of Enoch, Canuck, which means the people who will be initiated is who Adam and Eve comes from. That's why they were called Adam, because they wasn't called Adam at first. He's the first man being called Adam, a new tribal name. She's the first woman being called Adam. That's a tribal name. I showed in second address these people. I went even to the word that these, when he said ordained 2 living creatures, it means 2 living peoples. Man.
Now here we're about to see, unfortunately, this kid really is completely incompetent. In 2nd Ezra, it is referring indeed to 2 creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan, just as you're seeing here. Now, as you see here, in the King James Version, there is an error in translation, and that may be the source of this child's confusion. As you see here, this King James Version was heavily influenced by the quote Latin Vulgate, which our little Roman boy here, of course, is using. As we see here in the footnotes of this book, chapter, and verse, other Latin versions read Enoch instead of Behemoth, as our Roman heathens fudged this up. But as we're seeing here, there was a separation between ultimately 2 creatures, one remaining in the waters and one coming on to land. And as you are seeing here, reading Enoch instead of Behemoth is a known error within the quote KJV. Now, on top of this display of once more this complete clown not having any idea of what it's speaking about, furthermore, when you keep reading in this book, it literally states in overlaying fashion the phases of creation, including once more Adam created on the 6th day. Furthermore, it states, and from him we have all come, the people whom you have chosen. Furthermore, verse 56 reads, as for the other nations that have descended from Adam. Now we will continue on with our Roman court jesters' buffoonery.
I showed this, even in the dictionary, that they believe it. It says this. I went to Corinthians showing that the word creature means man.
Now, our little Romana said he even went to Corinthians, which we see here was written by Paul. And though for many there is no need to elaborate on Paula's connection to the Romans, however, I more than encourage everyone to look into the Ebionites whom were against Paul, actual Hebrews correcting the nonsense of Roman virgin birth pushes and the like, including the fact that ultimately Paul himself was a Roman.
Our brother showed you nothing. His doctrine is all false. I went into God creating Adam and Eve, showing you God is a spirit. I showed you wisdom was the breath blowed into Adam that gave him life, family. Because y'all call him the Most High, I don't even know it's a man. I went into God creating Adam and Eve, showing you God is a spirit. Because y'all call him the Most High, I don't even know it's a man. I showed you wisdom was the breath blowed into Adam that gave him life, family. I literally go back and rewatch the premise. I showed you what the book says to read it precept upon precept. That what you're reading at face value in English is not the same understanding in our culture. So they think of fairy tale. I showed you the word dragon used for a man is the same word serpent used for a man. He believes in walking, talking snakes.
As you see here, snakes indeed once had legs. And as I will touch on later on as well, as far as talking with snakes goes, communication between humans and animals has indeed been demonstrated, including animals and other animals, through transcranial magnetic stimulation device experiments, as you are seeing here. Now, though this form of telepathy has been proven with these transcranial magnetic stimulation devices, it is ultimately due to God-given natural processes, as I demonstrate in my videos, such as here, as I have picked up the piece of garbage at these quote agencies such as the quote FBI and whatever the fudge so on, that like pieces of garbage have been using this quote technology to not only spy on you, but also stare at whatever loved ones you may have, and so on, as I demonstrate through these videos. Punk little K.O.T may be one of them.
Christian. Can't say he's not one. He believes in what they teach. Because y'all call him the Most High, I don't even know it's a man. Because y'all call him the Most High, I don't even know it's a man. Because y'all call him the Most High, I don't even know it's a man. I showed you, family, that Job said he was also formed out of the dust of the ground, even going to the dictionary word, proving that it means the earth and clay and dust. Saying he's also formed out of the earth. So is Job a literal created man?
Now once more, this clown makes clear that it has no idea what it is talking about, as when you go to the book of Job, you will see that it is Elihu, one of the sons of the friends of Job, who actually states what it was that he was trying to say that Job said. And he says it in a manner of drawing a parallel to him and Job, being as he is younger than Job, yet wants him to take him seriously in the discourse that was taking place. And in other words, is stating, I am a man like you are, as you will see when you read through the book.
Just like he's trying to make Adam. Job said, I also am formed out of the ground, out of the clay, which means dust and earth. Showing that that is the meaning in Genesis 2. It's also allegory. Because it was given wisdom raised out of a savage mind state. Poor, didn't have knowledge. He raised him up, gave him low.
All right. Shout out to K.O.T. Shout out to K.O.T. We're going to pass this thing over to Landy. Landy, you have the last word.
Excellent. Now, clearly this K.O.T person is someone who is literally extremely misconstrued in his understanding, or you're just a straight up atheist here pretending and really trying to keep people in a Christian worldview, to be honest with you, in the way that you mean it. In the way that you mean it.
And of course, I mean anything to do with Rome. And of course, in time, these real geniuses might begin to start their little campaigning of having those that live around them try to feel some sort of pride or patriotism, including when it comes to any of those, quote, nations aligned with Rome, as of course they want you to be happy, to be good little slaves, that, quote unquote, this one or that one is at the gates, here to, quote, attack you, when of course you let me know how under attack you have been day and night, at least being conscientious of it as an adult. How long were you all under siege and had to go without toilet paper? How long ago was that? So in light of Roman, quote, patriotism, or any of the nations whom have modeled themselves after them, when you see such Roman love, such as Vespasian taking control and stopping the food supply to, quote, Italy in order to take charge of Rome, it brings all the more light to the quote of the great general known as Hannibal, when he stated, "I have come not to make war on the Italians, but to aid the Italians against Rome." And for any real geniuses, they would be stating, here he is mentioning something in regards to Hannibal, as ultimately I am king of the angels. So with regards to any, quote, threat being at the gates, just as the number 7 so clearly represents the completion of a cycle biblically, and in reflection of that, upon completion of the 7th cycle around Jericho, the walls came falling down. We will be seeing, of course, what the completion of cycles holds for us all by the grace of God.
But to begin with, stating that Isaiah was not, or excuse me, stating that wool could not have been used metaphorically. When you look at the description of Noah, which is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says that he was red as a rose and white as, and then it goes to describe his woolly hair. And then when you go to the book of Isaiah, when Isaiah is describing the exile which is taking place, it literally states, this to me is like the days of Noah. It goes on to describe the happenings of the exile which took place there metaphorically. It states that red, crimson, white, and then it also uses wool metaphorically, speaking of the exile which took place, the Babylonian exile.
As these revelations to us, its angels, are meant to bring comfort and rest, arm you with peace of mind, and particularly when it comes to times of trouble or fear, as we see in the book of Isaiah, comfort, my people, is a charge from God. And we will now see how God has used this time, which the book of Isaiah is based in, a time of destruction and exile, to show its control and orchestration of order. Just as we saw, there are 14 generations from David to this Babylonian exile, We will now see how upon reflection, seeing control adds comfort to what is perceived as chaotic, as in further showing there is never anything outside of God. We see that in the book of Isaiah, when it reads that to me this is like the days of Noah, it is meant literally, as here we are going to see reflections of the time of Noah. Noah's father names him, stating, "This one will bring us relief, rest, comfort." And here in the book of Isaiah, it reads, "The Lord will comfort Zion. It will comfort all of its wasted places." Reflections of Noah's name, meaning comfort. And getting even deeper still, Noah, being the 10th generation since Adam, is in direct parallel, direct overlay to a 10th being saved from the exile. The reflection of these details run even deeper still, as just like Noah is described as white as snow and red as a rose, with hair as white as wool. We see this reflected in the book of Isaiah, reading, "Come now, let's reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool."
So yes, indeed, the wool that he brought up is indeed metaphorically as well. Also stating that he was saying that I agreed that Gabriel was, it was complete nonsense, and any grown person that can literally hold focus for a second knows that when I addressed that, he began to fumble like a child which literally is not yet in full control of his emotions, and stating that stating that humankind goes back 300,000 years. K.O.T, you are very flawed, and science itself states that carbon dating has an expectancy of being efficient of 60,000 years. And you also tried to state that I was in essence strawmanning you when I said that science classifies Neanderthals and Denisovans as humans, literally. And then you went back and stated that it goes back 300,000 of years. When you look back at the histories of actual civilizations, such as written records, it goes back to a time frame which aligns with biblical chronology, not of the atheistic nonsense you're trying to spew here. And also going forward, I did show indeed a slide showing studies which prove when you count back the deleterious mutations of the human being, it goes back to 6,000 years. If it went back as far as you said, we'd all be extinct. So also on top of that, when you see the diet of Genesis 129, as well as if you look into the Noahide laws or the 10 utterances of creation, after the creation of man, there is a specific diet given unto us, literally.
This is reviewed in all the more depth in this sharing beginning at this timestamp.
And here today, in our reality, there's something called genetic load discovered by Herman Mueller, which shows our genetic mutations. And once more, if we went back as far as he stated, we'd all be extinct already. And it is no coincidence that Elizabeth Blackburn proved that that diet outlined in Genesis 129 literally changed 500 genes in a span of 3 months, turning off genes which cause chronic disease and on those which prevent them. When you look in Jubilees, you will see the first sacrifice did not involve animals. It was done by Adam, and it was plant-based, literally.
Just as, like the Yahad in Qumran, did not necessarily go by which was attributed to them, however, historically have been held as the Ebionites, which were actually with the actual line of Christ, a voice of which you are listening to right now. And once more, recollecting the scripture, one of whose origins are of old and ancient days, as you see here, the pre-flood diet was held and also done so by not only John the Baptist, known to live off of dates and honey, but also James the Just. So once more, recollecting the scripture whose origins are of old and ancient ways, and bearing in mind the calendar, the clock, that the name Adam serves as an acronym form, since Adam to David to Mashiach. Here you see that it is held in the book of Jubilees, a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, preserved and protected by the Yahad, the Hebrews in Qumran, in the midst of war with Rome. It is held in the book of Jubilees that the very first sacrifice was non-animal, done by Adam.
As we literally are able to look back at this time map, which is literally able to save our human race today, as no one here has any answers for any chronic diseases except for check into K.O.T's atheistic ways, which haven't done anything for anyone. And talking about, I believe in some talking snake, as if you knew what took place somewhere at some time. Here today, anyone can look up. The scientists have done transcranial magnetic stimulation device experiments, TMS experiments that literally prove telepathic communication, as hard as it is to believe, look it up, with animals, including also human beings. An angel by the name of Michael Persinger was shown to be demonstrating this quantum entanglement. This is real. So whatever type of nonsense you're stating, the actual science that you're going to try to resort to actually does prove this chronology, including the fact that you ran from the actual chronology I've showed since Adam, matching up with the Exodus date. Indeed, it's true, not all scientists show that, but I did say there is heavy historical and archaeological evidence supporting it, literally, including Judges and First Kings. How can that be coincidence? So anyone who actually takes that into consideration, I literally dare you to say that this one won something here tonight. Thank you.
All right, all right. Shout out to both debaters. This was a excellent debate from both debaters. I'm gonna put the link inside of the chat room for the people to decide. Who do you think had the better argument for tonight's debate? Was it Landy the Christ or was it K.O.T? All right, so get the polling. The poll is in the chat room. I'll pin it at the top. And y'all can go ahead and do what it do. But at this time, unfortunately for both debaters, their time is officially. While y'all putting y'all votes in, let me know who do y'all want me to shucklebuck first. Press 1 for K.O.T and 2 for Landy the Christ. Be forewarned, the questions will be very difficult to answer.
Shucklebuck.
If he dies, he dies. Alright. So, this is the Solar Vision Debate League, and we are now in the Shucklebuck section of the debate. Alright, so let me check out the chat. What's going on with the chat? Peace to Chris MVP Harris. We got Amber in the building. We have Thermo in the building. Astro Indigenous Black Man J. Cow. And Yame is in the building. Blue is in the building. Astro. Judah Nas is in the building. Facts Only is in the building. Juju is in the building. Alright, shout out to the chat. Yanga in the building. The Arguments League. Lance is in the building. Alright. C. Dot Hustle is in the building. Alright, so it looks like there's more twos than one. So we're going to start out with Landy the Christ. What's going on, Landy?
Whenever you're ready, brother.
All right, so was Adam the literal first man, brother?
Yes.
And why do you believe that's the case?
Both the scientific and also chronological evidence that I place forward all substantiate that.
Okay, so you're saying according to science?
Well, for example, as I stated, there is a person named Herman Mueller, was a person, who showed that genetic load, negative deletions, deleterious mutations in our genome is indeed a fact, in essence, that the human genome is degrading. And if you trace back those mutations, it goes back to a time frame which literally points to 6,000 years. I showed a slide which was demonstrating that. And if we actually, our race, existed past 6,000 years, we would be extinct under those conditions, under that reality.
Oh.
And also, on top of that scientific evidence, the chronological evidence that I placed forward indeed points to Adam being in the exact time frame which matches biblically, not just with First Kings and with Judges, but also again with the archaeological and historic evidence which supports an
What
Exodus.
book of the Bible talks about Adam? Because you're doing a lot of explaining right now.
What were you stating?
What book talks about Adam?
Yes, Genesis and also Jubilees.
I did not hear you out of your whole soliloquy say anything that was in the book of Genesis.
I actually mentioned Genesis and specifically
I'm talking
when
about
I
just
showed,
now, not in the debate, because that's this is like our
oh,
question.
that's no problem. I was stating literally that there was both scientific and historical evidence, and I first went through the scientific. That's why you didn't hear me mention Genesis at first.
Okay, so do you put science over your Bible?
God created everything, so science proves the Bible. Just as I stated in the premise,
No,
for
I mean,
example.
so I'm asking you a question though. Do you put science over the Bible? Because when I asked you, you quickly went to science as opposed to just simply going into the book of Genesis.
Well, for example, I have sharings that display that the beginning creation account as held in Genesis actually overlays with the modern day consensus that is called the Big Bang. So one more time, when you mention, do you put this over that? Without this, there is not that.
Okay,
That's
so
what
are you saying that Adam is the first man? Like there were no other men on the planet, and Adam was the first man?
literally.
Literally. Okay. What in what you just said proves that?
The fact that there had to be a first man.
How?
The
Why?
Yes, because you wouldn't be here if there wasn't a first one. This is
How
like,
do you know that it was a first man though? How can you prove that?
Now, as you remember, the good brother here asked me if I put science over the Bible. And this because, of course, he was going to ask me to prove what is stated in the Bible. So this is why I laid out everything as I did. And there is also the fact, once more, that as I placed very straightforward, that the beginnings of Genesis completely overlay with scientifically explained processes of the beginning of our universe, and ultimately the scientific consensus of the beginning of our universe, called the Big Bang. And to give one example here in the moment of the beginnings of Genesis overlaying with what has been demonstrated scientifically. Now, though the scientific overlays begin even sooner than this, as I stated, just one example in the moment. And God said, "Let there be light." And here we will see that that was indeed a poetic portrayal of literal reality. And God said, "Let there be light." And as is scientifically understood today, sound is vibrating frequency. And energy, such as light, is a manifestation of its frequency, bringing all the more literal understanding and realization to God said, "Let there be light."
because in other words, you'd be asking, what would be the question you'd be asking me, just to clarify further, in alternative, is how do you know that there's a first two or a first three?
You
What would
don't
be the
know, is what I'm saying. You don't know
no,
either.
no,
You don't know
no.
whether it's 2, 3, 5, 6. You don't know.
Now, here's the thing.
So I'm asking you, say, since you know, can you
Go
prove it
ahead.
to me? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, one thing. One more time, as I said in my opening, that here today, with our God-given senses, we're able to see that every mother, that every baby is born from a mother and a father. That had to have a beginning, literally. That did not go back eternally. That has to have this began.
So in the beginning, there was a mother giving birth to a to Adam.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. That is why in my opening round I stated that confronting the reality that there had to be a first man, and then ultimately, when we're speaking of the first baby born, there had to be a first, just let's make sure we're clear, excuse me. To have a baby, the first baby ever born, regardless of what time it was, the first baby ever born, just for argument's sake, had to come from a first mother and father, the first baby, correct? So then we get to, you don't have to answer, but then we get to logically, where did that first mother and father come from? Of course, which again, as I stated in the opening, causes one to confront creation.
Okay, so let's confront creation. Like, okay, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Excellent. Now, this is why I brought up the details that K.O.T was trying to dismiss, such as it is not a coincidence that we see in the Sefer Yetzirah that God created the universe using 22 letters and the number.
Brother, you're doing a lot of explaining, bro. That's what I'm just saying. Like, you're like, I'm just saying, like, okay, so was it Eve that was first, or was it Adam?
Now, if we were actually listening to what I laid out, I stated that the way that David's reign literally outlined or overlaid with what is placed forward in Leviticus, that when a male is born,
bro. Come on, bro.
Like,
come on, bro. Like, what you doing? Like that. Like, was it Adam or Eve, brother? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what you doing, bro? Like, you keep on saying, okay, look, this is what we'll do, right? Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to the book of Genesis, right? In the book of Genesis, right, chapter 5, right, it says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In that day, God created man in the likeness, God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam.
Now, though what he just read out can vary depending on the version that you are reading, it still doesn't change what the correct answer, let alone the truth, is. So as he just read out,
in that day God created man in the likeness, God made he him.
God made he him, meaning Adam, the first.
Male and female created he them.
Male and female created it them, meaning Adam and Eve. So here it gets a little nonsensical. However, you already have your answer right there.
So is that one person, or is that like multiple people?
yes. Now, from where you're reading from in particular, don't forget it's a recap. So just as is actually stated when you go back from the very beginning, Adam was first, and as we all know, Eve was made from Adam. So just as I was, just as I was explaining to K.O.T a moment ago as well, that of course you can call any amount of people Adam. So of course on that recap where it states it called them both Adam, okay, excellent. I just explained to K.O.T. That's perfectly fine. I have no issue there. However, when you go back before that, it states Adam was made first and then Eve from Adam. Thus what I meant, it causes one to confront that creation.
Okay, wait. So the answer is
Adam's first?
I don't think you. Okay, let me repeat the question. In Genesis chapter 5, it says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day God created man in the likeness God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. So was Adam one person, or was it multiple people?
Excellent. Now don't forget, you began with reading out in the generations of Adam. Don't forget, it not only tells you that at 130 Adam begot Seth, but it also tells you when he dies. This is literally speaking of a man.
And as we are seeing here, just as I stated, it is listed in Genesis 5, after the recapitulation of God creating Adam and Eve, we see a chronology, an account of the sons of Adam down to Noah and his 3 sons. And now we have further proof that this isn't just some male-driven this and that nonsense that some would push in that fashion. As we see here, there is apparently some confusion as to there being a first. So of course, as God would have it, being all-knowing, it made this chronology as simplified as it gets to know, of course, that it created male and female, the first father and the first mother of all mankind.
And as I
Was
stated,
Seth Adam?
excuse me,
Was Seth Adam?
in calling him humankind, yes, but was he his father? No. This is what I'm clearing up right now. When
Okay,
you
so
say,
when it says
hold,
their Adam, well, okay, I'm just when it says male and female. When it says male and female, he created them and called their name Adam. In that context, is it talking about one person or is it talking about multiple people?
in that context, it's of course talking about multiple people. Like how?
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Hold on, I just want to clarify though. There's information before that
That's all I was asking though, bro. Like what?
Okay, I
What's
just
all
make sure.
explaining? God damn, you're doing a lot of explaining, bro. All right, so okay, so if that's talking about a multiple group of people, that would mean that Adam is a group of people, right?
Now, one more time. Adam means humankind. However, when anyone reads before that, you see that Adam was made before Eve, and it's still referring to him
So
as
Adam is only humankind when you want it to mean humankind.
no, because hold on, I'm making sure to be clear that it doesn't mean humankind when you want it to mean humankind. Because
I
when you
don't.
go,
I'm not saying that it means humankind at all. You just said that it
Let
means
me finish
humankind.
answering you.
I'm
When
not
you,
saying that it means humankind. I asked you, and you said that it meant humankind. So what I'm
no,
asking you now,
also,
brother, is it when you want it to mean humankind, or is it some type of way we could figure out when it's talking about the one man Adam as opposed to the people Adam?
yeah, let's figure it out right now. Now, you started at Genesis 5, correct? And started where it states, now these were the generations of Adam. Before that, does it say anything about Adam being made before Eve?
Adam being made before Eve?
Yes.
I believe that it says that Adam was created before Eve in chapter 2, I believe.
Now, hold on. So if we start in chapter 2 and it's speaking of Adam, and now we both narrowed down that that's one person, then of course, when we get to chapter 5, which I stated is a recap, and then it mentions people, there we have our answer. So yes,
No, there we have a contradiction is what I see.
we don't have a
Yes,
contradiction
we have
because
a contradiction. We have one portion of the Bible is saying that Adam is this one man that was created before Eve, and now in this part it's saying that this Adam means Adam and Eve. Like, okay,
now,
well, like, what? That sounds like a contradiction to me. What does it sound like to you?
when you go to other places in the Bible, when it tells you now these are the generations of, it shows you a recap. Just as you will see that same
Why
type
does
of
God need to give us a recap? This is
now,
we act like this Sports Center or something. This ain't
hold
Sports
on.
Center. Why you gotta give us a recap of what? What is God giving us a recap in the book that we need our salvation, and if we don't follow this book, we're gonna burn in hell for eternity? Why do He need to give us a recap?
That's a good, honest question. But if you see the example, for example, I stated something to K.O.T in my premise, in my opening, and also in the introduction. And then later on, he started basically saying things that were already completely cut by what I already said, as if I didn't say them. So perhaps that's a good reason for a recap, as it's listed there.
Okay, so it just told you like a chapter or two ago. So why does it have to reiterate it in the 5th chapter if it's talking about it from the 1st to the 4th?
With respect, I just answered that directly.
But it doesn't make sense to me, is what I'm saying.
Did you see what K.O.T did?
Yeah, I see what K.O.T did.
Then
It don't make sense, bro. Just keep it real. It don't make sense, and it sounds like a contradiction, bro.
Now, earlier you mentioned to me that I wanted it to be that Adam was done first. And then after some going through this ourselves, we saw in Genesis 2, it's not that I wanted it to be, it's that it was. So once more, there is no contradiction.
It's how you're seeing it in chapter 2, which I see it the same way, but I view it as a contradiction. You was trying to finagle it as if, okay, it was talking about this here, and it was talking about this there. And this word means 2 different things. That's what you're trying to finagle it into. So what is it? Is Adam a people or is it a man?
I've told you, literally.
It's both, right?
K.O.T mentioned, hey, Adam wasn't his actual name, like as if Eve was calling him Adam or anything like that.
But Eve is Adam.
Hold on.
Eve is Adam.
Hold on.
Brother,
Adam,
is Eve Adam or not?
In the sense that you asked me, is Seth Adam or not? Yes.
Okay, so if Eve is Adam, then when there was creating Adam in the 1st chapter, that means he was creating Eve as well, right?
Now, if you want to get as technical as stating if Eve is his rib and he created his rib, is the rib Eve? Then to that I could say, well, okay, but that's just like K.O.T stating, if he made the angels first and the angels eventually...
No, what I'm saying is that when he molded Adam from the dust of the ground, that was Eve too, right?
Just as I just stated, that was the first man, Adam. But if you're meaning, hey, what about the technicality?
No, I'm talking about literal. Like, because
good,
you said that Adam,
I mean it literally as
you
well.
said Adam was male and female, and you agreed that, yeah, Adam is Eve. Eve is Adam. That's what you just said. You just said to me, Adam is Eve and Eve is Adam. That's what you just said.
I said that Eve would be Adam in the same way that you tried to say Seth
Okay.
was. I didn't say what you
Okay, so is Eve Adam?
She's humankind, but she's not who you're talking about made before Eve in Genesis 2.
Okay, so you have 2 different interpretations of Adam.
No, you have depth.
Okay, wait. Oh, you saying no, right? Okay, you just said no. Okay, wait. Okay,
they're not 2 different.
Wait. You do. You have 2 different interpretations because, okay, when I read to you in chapter 5, you said that this Adam is talking about what? When it says, Adam, I named them, male and female, created he them, blessed them, and called their name Adam. Is that talking about the first man, Adam?
Now, do we...
Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh,
perfect.
So, okay, this is talking about the first man, Adam.
Now, unfortunately, Solar thought he had one in a gotcha moment here. But once more, as you see here, this in chapter 5 is indeed also speaking of Adam the first, as he read out, in the likeness of God made it, him, Adam.
Now, remember you began...
You just said yes, right?
Hold on. Remember...
you just said yes.
You're talking about chapter 5, correct?
Yes. When it said... Okay, so this is talking about the first man, Adam.
Hold on. No. Hold on.
You just said yes.
You said this was talking about Eve.
I didn't say nothing about Eve. What are you talking about? When I read to you in chapter 5, you said that this Adam is talking about what? When it says, Adam, I named them, I didn't say nothing about Eve. What are you talking about? I named them. I didn't say nothing about Eve. What are you talking about? I named them. I didn't say nothing about Eve. What are you talking about?
Well, let's clarify. Ask your question again. Don't worry.
It's an art to listening, bro.
Indeed, there is an art to listening. And now my brother Solar knows all the more how artful the Christ, by the grace of God, truly is. And whomever in the chat that my brother is about to bring up, which stated that he did not mention Eve when he clearly read out them.
I named them.
Though in very micro fashion, let this be a lesson for you. This is what happens when you go against the Christ. Now I recommend you begin with letting go of the meat, to say the least, and eat the original meat, which is listed in Genesis 1:29, to clear up some of that brain fog and help you focus. As here we're about to see Solar get serious and ask his chat if he mentioned Eve when
I named them. Bro, you is confounded, bro.
Not even
brother
close.
Solomon, you're confounded, brother.
Not even close. We go over this, you'll see that you actually said Eve.
Oh no, I did not say Eve. Hey, press 1 in the chat room if I say Eve. Press 1 in the chat room if I say Eve. Press 2 if I say Adam.
And remember who.
Wait. Okay, so wait. Okay, so
this is gonna be replayed.
Okay, so let me ask again.
Go ahead.
In Genesis chapter 5, when it says, "And Adam, no male and female, created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam."
Yes, as I said, that's referring to both Adam and Eve, as it states them.
I named them.
However,
you didn't say that 5 minutes ago.
Yes, I did.
No, you did not.
As a matter of fact, I
you didn't say that 5 minutes ago. You said that was referring to Adam 5 minutes ago. Which one is it, bro?
2. Hold on. I said chapter.
Hey, Domo, stop. Hey, Domo, stop playing, Domo. See, Domo playing in the chat room.
And whether at this Domo character or any other, if you were one of the ones foolish enough to follow the sheep off of the cliff, you are always more than welcome to come and get cooked by the Christ directly.
Yeah.
One more time. I stated that Genesis chapter 2 was speaking of Adam the first.
Okay, but you just said 5 minutes ago, bro. When I asked you, and you said to me that is referring to Adam. Okay, so now let's ask it again. In Genesis chapter 5, when it says, "Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam." Who is that talking about? Is that talking about the man Adam, or is it talking about the people Adam?
One more time, just as you stated, it was talking about the people. However, you began with, these are the chronology. This is the chronology, the generation.
Okay. Wait, we got it. We got that part.
No, wait. I just want to clarify one thing here.
We're just talking about the generations, but I'm saying, look, I have a point that I'm trying to make. I have a point that I'm trying to make. That's what I'm trying to say. Because look, you just told me that this is not talking about 2 different Adams. So this is where we at now. So
no. You're confused.
I just showed you. I'm confused.
They just showed
wait. So you said in chapter 5 it was talking about the people.
This is why.
Let's go to chapter 2. Let's go to chapter 2 real quick, and I'll let you say what you want to say. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. So.
And why did you go to chapter 2, by the way?
Because I'm showing you that it's talking about 2 different Adams. You said no, it's talking about the same Adam.
Hold on. You went to chapter 2 because I stated in chapter 2 it shows that the first Adam was made first. Yeah. That's why you're there. Okay. Now hold on. You began.
Okay, wait. So let's go to chapter 2. Okay, so when it says that we can pick any random thing, and
And while you're pulling that up, afterwards, we're going to go back to you beginning with saying these are the generations of Adam. And hold on, and we're going to address how it doesn't ever show any chronology for Eve, just of Adam.
okay, wait. You know what's interesting? When I'm reading this, it doesn't say Adam. It says, and the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden and dressed him up. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every green tree of the fruit, da da da, but the tree of knowledge of evil, blah blah blah. And the Lord is not a God that the man, blah blah blah. I am not fine. Okay, it says, and Adam gave names to all the cattle. Okay, so this Adam in chapter 20, chapter 2, verse 20, is that a man or is that the people Adam?
That's a man.
One man, you're saying?
One man.
So one man is giving names to all the cattle and the fowl of the air and to the beasts of the field. One man is doing all that.
Correct.
How long did it take him to do that?
Now, this is the thing.
How long did it take him
I'm telling you right now. I'm explaining to you.
Okay.
Now, when you're going through the days of creation.
Oh my God, here we
go. Yeah, this is the truth. This, whether you like it or not. Again, it's not what you want it to be. This is what it actually is. When you're going through the days of creation.
wait, you got to do a lot of explaining, bro, because it doesn't make sense that one man was going, he's flying in the air, he's going under this water in the sea, he's chasing all the beasts of the field, they're not trying to eat him.
Where does it state that he's doing all of that?
You got to do that because that's where you're going to find the birds and the fowls of the air. That's where you're going to find the beasts of the field. What are you talking about?
Now, as you are seeing here, when you review Genesis chapter 2, verse 20, it clearly shows that God brought the animals unto Adam. Furthermore, when you get to Genesis chapter 9, it shows that all of the animals began to fear mankind. Thus, of course, a different relationship beginning what you may be more accustomed to, of course, in this day and age.
That's according to how you see things today.
However, okay, so it was different then.
I feel what it was like then.
Okay, so how was it then?
No, I just said you didn't. I didn't. Now you're
telling me it wasn't like it is now. So tell me how it was then.
I'm not adding to the text. You just did.
No. Yes, how am I adding to the text if it's like that now?
You began with stating literally that this is not the way you wanted. I want to go off of the way that it is. I'm not doing it the way that I wanted. I'm doing it the way that it is. And you asking me, what's the difference?
The way it is how it is now is what I'm saying. Did something change?
Very good. Just like I said, today as we see it, every baby born has to come from a mother and father, correct?
No.
Now, even if you're trying to talk about artificially, that comes from a human being. So yes, it is still from two.
No, you just said a mother and a father. Now you're trying to switch it up.
That's still a mother and a father.
No, that's not a mother and a father.
A mother and a
father.
No, it's not. It actually is.
No, they could take a semen.
Anyone.
They could take a semen.
Hold on, wait.
And they could take an egg. They could take an egg and a semen, and then they could artificially inseminate it, so they could literally not have a mother and a father.
Where did that semen and egg come from?
It came from a man and a woman.
There you are. Now,
but they don't have to be the mother and the father.
That's with the extra depth of interpretation that you're trying to add to.
No, that's you trying to finagle something that you pose the question. You're trying to do some finagling, bro.
Literally, you need a male and a female to make a baby. You just walked through that. artificially or not. Now, remember, that's
It
the way
doesn't
we see it.
necessarily have
Hold
to be a
on.
male, and it doesn't necessarily it
To get
doesn't
sperm?
necessarily have to be a male or a female.
Hold on, stop. They get sperm from a female? Is that what you're saying?
No, they can get
Where do
sperm
they
from
get
a
sperm from?
they get sperm from a male.
Now, do they get egg from a male?
They can get egg from a female.
There we are. Now, that's the way
But
we
we
see
do
it.
have
Hold on.
exceptions. We have
Hold on.
exceptions, biological exceptions to that rule,
Like what?
like hermaphrodites.
Hold on. How isn't a hermaphrodite born?
No. We saying exceptions to the rule. Now that hermaphrodite can have a self pregnancy.
A hermaphrodite can have a self.
Yes. Look it up. Google that.
Okay. Now, being that a hermaphrodite can have a self-pregnant, I don't have to Google it. Even after putting that up, hold on. This is very
Going back to the point. Going back to the point.
Bro. I'm
Because you're going down a rabbit hole, like, you know what I'm saying? Look, we're going back into Genesis, right?
I'm not going down a rabbit hole. And
you're going down a rabbit hole, brother.
I'm expecting more bravery from you.
Now, though it should be very obvious by the fact that as soon as he said that, I mentioned, how is a hermaphrodite born? Of course, not taking seriously whatsoever what it was that he just stated.
Biological exceptions to that rule.
Like what?
Like hermaphrodites.
Hold on. How isn't a hermaphrodite born?
And being as this flawless victory once more by the grace of God of mine was completely out of their hands at this point, seeing that they were resorting to this level of erroneous nonsense, I was about to give a hypothetical example based off of what he was just speaking of, just to lead him back to the truth, but there was no need ultimately. As obviously, had I believed that, I wouldn't have pulled up proof that obviously this is not correct, as you're about to see. I do.
Brother.
I'm expecting more bravery from you.
What do you want me to do?
Now, as I said, now going back, that causes
I want you to answer the question, bro. Is this talking about two different atoms? You just admitted that it was.
In chapter 5, not in chapter 2.
So in chapter 2, it's talking about one atom.
Correct.
In chapter 5, it's talking about multiple atoms.
And further proof.
Yes or no?
I'm saying yes. And further
okay,
proof.
You didn't say yes. Okay, yeah. So now in chapter 2, it's talking about one atom. In chapter 5, it's talking about multiple atoms.
Chapter 2 is talking about one atom. Chapter 5 is talking about it exactly as you stated, them. Now, there's something to point out.
Is that a contradiction?
No, because of the fact that you started out with these are the chronologies of Adam, and there's only one chronology.
So is they using the same word to mean two different things?
There's depth to interpretation, just like you said.
Yes or no? Is they using the same word to mean two different things?
Yes, just like
Thank you, brother. All right. So, what's going on? What's going on, K.O.T.?
Shalom, brother. Peace and blessings, soul of mine.
God damn, he do a lot of explaining. I'm gonna be explaining. He be doing some explaining, bro.
He trying to debate about something else at the same time. He ain't even stuck in the same debate no more.
God damn, that boy be explaining, bro. You know what I mean? Sheesh. Like pulling teeth with this brother. That's a good brother. He's a good brother, though. That is a good brother.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Is Adam the literal first man?
No, he is not.
And why is that the case?
Well, according to the sciences that I brought up, showing that an arrowhead predated Adam, The Mongol man dated to 62,000 years ago. They have his bones. So if you want to date him to 10, 20, don't matter. He still predates Adam. I brought up the Mongol man, the pottery. I brought up the pottery from the Japanese culture, 18,000 years old. He never refuted and said it was a monkey that made the pottery. So we know it was the man that made the pottery. Did you get what I'm saying? He also agreed that
I didn't know
Gabriel
what neither one of y'all was talking about, to be honest with you.
He even admitted Gabriel, the angel, is before Adam, which is a man. He agreed it's a man also. So he agreed with everything I'm saying. He also agreed in Genesis. Adam wasn't literally created in God's image. God wasn't a man, he told you. It was no literal. God was this and this and that. So we know there was a figuratively. So he agreed with what I'm saying.
All right, so
what can we say?
All right, so in the book of Genesis, right? Do you believe that this is literal?
It's an allegorical teaching about literal people that was risen up after the cataclysm that Genesis talks about. Earth being flooded.
Yeah, tell Psycho to submit the vote. Yeah, he can submit the vote now. Yeah, so we could see. You don't have to listen to the Shucklebuck, man. Yeah, tell him to submit the vote.
Yeah, he agreed with my whole stance pretty much.
So in Genesis, right? In Genesis chapter 2, right? Oh no, this is chapter 3. When they ate of the fruit, right? Is that talking about one man, or is that talking about a group of people?
Well, when they ate of the fruit, the whole Genesis 3 is all about the groups of people. The serpent is a man, the beasts of the field are people.
Okay, so you're saying that when Eve
they learn of knowledge they weren't supposed to learn. That's what eating of the fruit means, learning of knowledge in our culture, in Hebrew. I mean, they learn of the knowledge.
So when he says Eve gave the man the fruit and he did eat, she gave bunch of people the fruit?
No. She went back and told her husband the doctrine that she have learned from the man she just got it from.
Oh, wait. Okay, so wait. That's something. Okay, we get what you think. No, wait. We get what you think it is, but we reading the story for what it is. Okay, so is that was one woman? That was one woman giving one man a fruit.
No, it was a woman learning knowledge from someone to another, from the people of Leviathan I brought up that was on the 5th day.
Okay, Leviathan. Okay, whatever that was.
The people of the serpent.
The Bible didn't call that Adam, so we could push that to the side. All right. So what did he do? What did she do? Did she give the knowledge to one man, or did she give the knowledge to 1,000,000 people?
No, she gave it to her husband. I told you.
Okay, so that's one man, right?
Yeah, in that chapter we dealing with a man and a husband. To tell you that
okay, wait. So that's one man, right?
Yep, right.
God damn, y'all do a lot of explaining.
Nah, it's one man. He learned knowledge.
Okay, that's all I was asking, bro. Yeah, damn, you do a lot of explaining, bro. Yeah, God damn, bro. Y'all explain, bro.
We got 3 people. That's what I'm talking. We got the serpent. That's a man. We got Adam.
Okay, we got that part. Okay, so according to the Bible, that was Adam. So are you saying that Adam is one man?
According to the Bible, what are you talking about now? You gonna switch something up?
I ain't switched nothing up. We're actually reading what it says.
Yeah, Genesis chapter 3.
It says, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and also gave it to her husband with her, and he did eat. Right? So that's talking about one woman giving one man something, right?
One man gave knowledge to another man's wife, and that woman took that knowledge back to her husband. There were 3 people.
So was the serpent Adam? Was
No,
the serpent Adam?
The serpent are the people of Leviathan. They call it the crooked
Okay,
serpent.
so we're not talking about that because the title
But
of this
he's
debate
the
was.
serpent that's
Oh
talking
no,
to
we're not
Eve.
talking about
Yeah.
that. We're not talking
okay.
about that.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
they're not Adam. That's not Adam. Because you can do a lot of explaining, right? You can do a lot of explaining as to what the serpent is, but according to the Bible, you got the serpent and you got Adam, right?
Right, I'm with that. Where you going?
Okay. So you trying to explain your way out of this? It ain't gonna make no goddamn sense. All right. So once again,
what you talk about ain't what the debate title is. Adam, the literal first man. The serpent is a man already, so we kick that out the window. So you can go to whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Wait. You saying that the serpent was a man? Where does it say in the Bible that the serpent was a man?
I brought him up. Premise.
Where in the Bible does it say? Where in the Bible does it say that the serpent is a man?
I just told you. 647. He said he ordained two living peoples. That's what creatures mean. I brought up the definition.
No. That's you trying to interpret shit. That's you trying to interpret stuff out of the context of what it actually is. Never did it say that. I said, where does it say that it was a man?
Second address, it says creature. That means man in our culture. So
wow, you said creature means man in our culture.
Another man.
You said creature means man. That's what.
That's a type of man, right?
So if a dude walking down the street, you want to say that creature walked down the street. That's what you want to say.
No, we make up all type of names for them. Now people now.
Okay. In what context would you wait? In what? Bro, in what context? Let me ask you. In what context are you going to refer to a man as a creature, bro?
Man, people call themselves creatures. Look it up. People painting themselves as creatures, calling themselves creatures. Is what men do.
Bro, you's a goddamn liar, bro.
In Christ,
you're a goddamn liar, bro. Goddamn, bro.
Ain't nowhere around it, man.
Lying, bro. Goddamn lying, that nigga, bro.
Y'all get back to
he calling us not once, and we call ourselves the most hideous of names. Not once did I hear a man refer to himself anything as a goddamn creature. What are you talking about? You hear this man, Landy? Landy, you hear this man, Landy? You hear this man? He talking about some goddamn. He gonna talk about something. He refers to the man as a damn creature. When did you ever refer to a man? Hold on, K.O.T. Landy, when did you ever refer to a man as a creature, brother?
When did I ever refer to a man as a creature? I didn't, but I also saw here that there isn't really babies born from self-impregnation of hermaphrodites as well.
He's still on that. I was lying, bro. I was lying, man. I be shooting from the hip, bro. Landy, man. Look at Landy, man. Look at Landy.
Well, I'm not mad. I've just
you doing fact checks. You doing fact. How dare you fact check Soul of Mine? How dare you? All right, y'all. I've been tripping. I just want